All right. I believe it is Commissioner Ortiz's turn to lead the pledge and invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for what's at our task on hand today, and we ask that you just guide us through that. Help us to just open our hearts and our minds to the discussions and hear what is on the table to discuss. So, Lord, we ask you to be with our first responders, our firefighters, our police department, anyone out there who is helping with any other struggles. Lord, help them to just get through with all those situations. Lord, we ask that you just be with our families at home, be with those who cannot be here today. Just ask that you be with them if they're struggling or anything. So, Lord, we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right, next up is approval of the minutes. Did anybody have any changes that they saw needed? If not, those will stand as approved. Okay. Next, we have public comment. This is a time for anybody to come up and discuss anything that they would like to bring forward. We have 30 minutes set aside for this, and we ask that you limit yourself to 5 minutes. If you do come up, please state your name and who you're with. So anybody for public comment? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to part 6.
Thank you. Item 6A, the governing body is asked to consider and approve requests from Carol Fry on behalf of the Finney County Fair Board. It's a reduced rate for trash pickup and permission to close off a portion of Lake Avenue to through traffic. These are consistent with, I believe, consistent with requests made in the past.
I'll make a motion we approve the request as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes.
Item 6B, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a request from Cody Cundiff, Hidden Trail Brewing, for a waiver of the noise ordinance on July 2nd, 2022, from 6 p.m. till 12 a.m. for a summer concert series with a live band on the patio at Hidden Trail Brewing at 210 East Shulman. And Cody's here.
Come on up, Cody. Yeah.
Hey guys. Want to play some music. July 2nd. So I made an application for, we have quite a few of these during the summer. Most of them should be done by 11, and those were all approved. And then this July 2nd one actually has 3 bands, and it was hitting me after it got approved, just kind of the change out in between bands. And I was like, well, we might go a little bit past 11, and so just to be safe and not stress the time as much, we should for sure be good by midnight. So if we could get that one extended, the rest of them can stay at 11, but that one I thought if we could get it extended a little bit would help us out.
There haven't been any complaints or anything from neighbors or anything that you know of, or concerns?
No, not yet. We've only had one other outdoor concert so far, and he told them the noise ordinance is done at 11, but we just kind of planned on being done at 10:30. That way there was like the whole
Sure.
song thing.
Okay.
Kind of same plan with this, would just extend it a little bit more. But
Does our staff notify the residents too of the change? Is that how that works, or is that?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I would just encourage you to check with the neighbors after this to see, I mean, other than that, I would have moved to approve the noise ordinance through 12 o'clock a.m. on July 2nd, 2022.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Thank you.
Thanks, Cody.
Item 7A, Parks and Recreation Director Aaron Stewart is here to present a video of the Turf Tank Robotic Painter.
Afternoon, Commissioners. A while back, you approved the turf tank purchase, the lease agreement, and this is the robotic painter. very fast unless you're painting a logo. The logos usually go quite a bit time. And that's because they're done line by line by line, as you can see there. Just for a point of reference, this right now has been sped up by 1,000 times.
Oh, wow.
So you can see that they're working this tablet that we use to set up fields, set up the logos, wherever they want to do the field placement, what type of field it is.
Who does the programming, Aaron? Is it you guys, or does it program it?
So they did the initial setup. They came out and trained us on it. There are several templates in there of various size fields, particularly soccer. Here you can see it's starting to paint the city logo. There you go.
Aaron, did you say 1,000 times?
Yeah, so 1,000 times speed for the video to pick it up and hurry.
So how long to make?
Generally, the logos themselves take at least a couple hours. Now, the field itself that it's painting right now takes 23 minutes, to put that in perspective, which was the primary reason for us getting this. So obviously, you can see no straight line, any of that. Paints a circle with no problem. I will say we diluted the paint for the purpose of this video, just so we weren't running out our higher cost paint that we would normally use. So when we do game fields, the paint is actually a little bit brighter.
How do you transport it from one place to another?
You can either lift it or use a small trailer. So typically we use a small trailer. The paint comes in concentrate. And as we zoom out, this is a full-size soccer field with both logos. Just to give you some perspective. So the concentrate you then mix in a 5-gallon bucket, and it makes 5 gallons of paint.
What's the life expectancy of this, is it,
6 years.
what's turf tank?
Turf tank.
Turf tank, yeah.
Yeah, 6 years is the lease on that, and we did that with the idea that we would then change the robot out for the newer version at that 6-year mark, assuming that we're happy with the performance.
Is that a battery operated? So how long does the battery last?
8 hours. So there is a spare battery just in case, but generally we charge it. It should pretty much paint all of our fields. So this is out at Garcia. It would paint all of those fields, all 7 of our soccer fields within a matter of a couple hours. 2 to 3 hours.
So if people want to use, like, say, a specialized logo and things like that, and they want to pay for it, I mean, is that something you're going to be
Yeah,
offering?
So you have to have a vector image that
Right.
is then uploaded by a turf tank, and then we then go from there. And there is a cost to that. Part of what we paid for is to have the rec logo and the city logo that we figured we would do several times. So text, we can enter in any kind of text for free. That's just something that we actually type in. So
That's neat.
yeah. Other questions?
Looks good.
Pretty neat.
All right. Thanks.
Item 7B, Water Resource Manager Jones will present a mid-year update regarding water consumption in the city of Garden City. Brett?
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. We've been talking about a lot of water today, so this is just kind of a brief update, mainly to kind of tell you, the governing body, where we ended last year and what our trends are for this year moving forward. So we've been keeping a 5-year average of water consumption, and first graph just kind of shows that we are trending. Despite the growth in the community, our overall water consumption was lower in 2021 than what has been typical of our 5-year average. We are still seeing some kind of trends that lead us to believe that we're going to continue to increase overall water consumption as the years go on. So the next chart just kind of shows what that average looks like from 2016 to current. We're producing in the neighborhood of 2.3 to 2.4 billion gallons of water a year that's delivered to customers here in Garden City. And despite we had some timely rains in 2021 that kind of helped us through May. And I think that's really what happened with the remainder of that year, why we dipped down a little bit lower. Weather plays a big factor for us on water usage, and we'll get into that as we go further into the report. In previous updates to the commission, we've noted that there's a continued slow growth in the non-irrigation season, and that's just due to additional commercial, residential businesses being built here in Garden City. We have more meters now than we used to, and you assume that each of those meters are going to use an additional amount of water. This chart here just gives the governing body some information about the seasonal swings that we see in water production. So you can see our non-irrigation months in the blue on that chart, which we kind of count as October through March. Some years when it's drier this year, I felt that irrigation went a little bit later in the season than what was typical. But that shows our winter irrigation, and then in the summer, our demand goes way up. And so, again, we try to direct some of our conservation things toward outdoor watering. It seems to be where we have most room to improve in the city. And then for our Public Utilities Advisory Board, last couple updates, we've been providing some information to kind of put growth in perspective to water use as well. So residential growth is the first chart you see. This is the overall residential consumption, which actually it's flat. I averaged that out, that it's growing at about -1%. But again, as weather changes, things like that, I consider that flat. But the average residential meter count since 2016 has increased by 193 meters. So we've had a 2.5% growth in meters in that period, despite having flat consumption growth. Moving on to our next category. Sorry, get my papers in order. Our commercial consumption, that's going to continue to grow. We see most of our commercial customers are businesses, and most of their water impact isn't in outdoor irrigation. So as we add additional consumers in the commercial category, we would anticipate to see that growth continue to tick up, and that is what you see on the chart. We've seen about a 3% growth over the past 5 years on commercial and industrial use, but our meter count has risen by a similar number, about 3.6% increase in meters on the commercial and industrial side. Okay, I like this chart here. So, and this is a chart that has really very little to do with the water department, and a lot to do with the other departments in the city trying to impact water usage. Of course, replacing the aquatic facility has a huge impact on that number, but you can see meter growth is essentially flat. It varies by maybe 1 or 2 meters a year. It seems to go up or down. But our water usage is approximately 40% less on our non-revenue water side than where we were in 2016. It's been a decrease that would average out to 7% per year. So we think that's a good sign, and kind of sets the table for working with other water users in the community if our own uses within the organization where we're being good stewards of water. So I feel good about the trend that we see there on our non-revenue water usage. The other thing important that I'd like to remind the governing body about is non-revenue water usage. The cost for that is absorbed by rate-paying customers. So the better we can take care of that water on the non-revenue side, the less costs that customers have to deal with. 2022 water consumption, just to kind of show where are we this year. And when I come talk to the governing body this early in the summer, it's pretty hard to say exactly where we are this year. but I can show you what the trend is, how it compared to last year, the last 5 years actually. And we started out really well. The dotted line represents our water usage. In the winter was down. It was the lowest year we had since 2016. Then spring happened, and rain didn't seem to happen very frequently along with it. So we're seeing a pretty big jump in April and May. You know, the coming months will really tell the picture of where we are in terms of our water position for this year. But that's kind of the trajectory we're on right now. First 18 days of June, our water production was about 9.4 million gallons per day. So certainly not the highest we've seen, but definitely, you know, warmer temperatures and moisture play a big role into that. The other project we wanted to update the commission on for this is just the WaterSense irrigation controller rebate. We had done some measurement of this program with the Public Utilities Advisory Board and wanted to talk about what impacts that had. So we were looking for, that started right at the beginning of the pandemic, which wasn't the best timing, but hindsight. That was approved in 2019, and then we implemented that starting in 2020. And then in 2021, we kind of measured the participants who had been in that program for a full season. And so this is what we found. We had 28 meters were impacted. The customers installed a WaterSense irrigation controller. 60% of the participants used less water than they used in the prior. The average water savings of the 17 controllers that did use less water was 22%. So that's a pretty significant number. The net water savings, including all controllers, the ones that saved water and didn't save water, was 550,000 gallons or 1.6 acre feet. So those 28 participants, even counting the ones who didn't save water, that offset the annual water use of 9 people. So pretty good payback in terms of investment and saving water. The rebate program expended $3,054.45 on those 28 meters that were represented in the comparison. The savings to the city based on the deferred water production cost was $1,265 for 1 year. So obviously if we have these in for multiple years, we can multiply that savings year by year. We anticipate that the return on the city's investment in that rebate program would be 2.4 years. For those controllers that did not produce the expected result, we're still looking into that. We've reached out to a couple different manufacturers. I know Ratio has been sending out some information that they have some customer feedback tools, and so we hope to, in the near future, using our communications department, maybe some things that we could do ourselves, provide some information to customers to help them kind of learn the tips and tricks of utilizing this equipment to help them get the best water savings out of it. So that's all
Excellent.
I
I have.
have-
I have a question too. So.
We'll just start with okay. When you looked at the comparison from 2021 to 2020 with those, did you take a control of maybe their neighbors to see if overall in that area water changed up or down? So even though some of those might have used more, the neighbors might have used even a little bit more than that, so it would have been a net.
We haven't looked into that,
Okay.
but that's something I can look into, and we can get some information for
And
you.
then the other question I have is, do you know if any of those people that installed the WaterSense controllers went from no irrigation to irrigation?
No, all of them were retrofits
Okay.
that I'm aware of. Yeah.
So when you think about, I know that you've been doing a lot with Parks and Recs as far as replacing heads or making sure that heads are aimed correctly. So I'm curious about how often should, especially with in-town watering and your sprinkler heads, I know there's surely has been some advancement in the quality and the type of those. Are there any recommendations that you are recommending for, residents that say, hey, after 5 years, you want to change out these, or there's some new advancements in, some of the water heads, that people are using, especially if you have an irrigation system?
Yeah, the biggest thing that we try to promote to customers is regardless of the age of the system, the customer needs to come out and observe that system when it's running. We find, especially when we're working with customers that get unexpected water bills because they've misprogrammed an irrigation controller. A lot of times those controllers are running either very late at night or very early in the morning, and so there's a lot of potential that customers can be missing issues with their irrigation system that could be addressed by replacing heads. We probably need to do more in terms of getting our customers in touch with resources about what it takes to maintain an irrigation system. They're hassle-free in terms of you're not pulling a hose around the yard, but they do require regular maintenance. You're correct, the heads do wear over time, and there's also kind of a right way to repair a system and a wrong way to repair a system, where you might have one head broken and then it gets replaced with a head that differs from what the other system is running, and so that can create issues in terms of how much water they're using, because now they may have a portion of their yard that's getting over irrigated now, and part of their yard is getting under irrigated because they don't have a good match on how they're distributing that water. So.
No, that would be really good information.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
Oh, good. Thanks, Ray.
Thank you.
Yep.
Item C, Commissioners, is an update on our goals for 2022 through 2023. I'm not going to read all of those to you, just that I appreciate the senior management team's indication of progress in each of those areas. And if you, looking through those, if you had some questions on specific ones, I would be glad to try to answer them. We tried to provide meaningful updates where there was progress and leave either blanks or indicate that there were no updates on those where we hadn't made progress. Any questions on those items?
Go ahead. I was just curious on the intersection of Spruce and Fleming, thank you. Because I noticed that there was some investigation there. How far along are we on that?
Mike, would you mind addressing that?
Yeah, good, excuse me, good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. We have looked into that. We've had Wilson Engineering pull out the previous traffic information that we had to collect to determine whether that intersection met warrants. It does meet the lower end of the traffic warrants, and I believe there's information in the goals document that talks about what it would cost to put in the traffic signalize that intersection, and a roundabout, if I remember that correctly.
Right.
So we haven't done anything other than we got all that information together and presenting that to you today, so.
So I've had a couple of organizations reach out and talk about solar panels, and I don't know if there's any information that your department has on solar panels, or how that works, and how that would pay back, or how they'd tie into the grid. If they would receive a net, and I didn't know where they would get that information. I didn't know of anything. And have you seen an increased request for those for solar panels, or?
Yes, we have. We've seen quite an increase in residential renewable energy solar panels that they're putting on. We don't provide them information on company A is a good one and company B is a bad one. We let them figure that out. What we do have is in our interconnection agreement that they have to fill with us it's a pretty detailed report. And so if you had a company that didn't know what they were talking about, they wouldn't be able to complete that information. The ones that do are very successful. And in that application, there's a $500 non-refundable fee just to have us take a look at that. And that actually deters some, it's kind of like the rougher people that come through town from time to time. Some of them will just sell you a box of goods and it doesn't do them any good. But we do track that. All of the accounts, and I don't remember, Ken, how many do we have now? 11 accounts. So every month, they either get a credit, well, they do get a credit if their system is up and running. And so far, it's been pretty successful.
And that's called interconnection agreement?
Yeah, it's a net metering, parallel generation. That's, you can just have them call us.
It sounds like,
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
I would have to. It
Send
sounds
that
very
in an email.
complicated, so yeah, but it's well worth the $500 to have it completed, so
Absolutely.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions on the goals?
No.
All right. We'll continue to present, and at some point near the end of the year, we'll do a pre-meeting on this topic and go into detail a little bit more in depth, but we committed to you earlier in the year to present these on a more frequent basis. Remaining items are staff reports. Be glad to answer any of those that you have questions on. Not hearing any, I'll call your attention to the meetings of note. If you could get with Seelin to RSVP any of those that would require RSVPs. I think we're ready for item 9A now, appropriation ordinance number 2557-2022A.
We'll make the motion to approve appropriation ordinance number 2557-2022A.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes.
And item 10A is, if approved, would be resolution 2926-2022, and it would remove from 152 Cloverleaf Road a motor vehicle nuisance.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Bringing before you today for consideration, we have, it has been determined that the residence located at 152 Cloverleaf Road has environmental nuisance conditions on the property and is in violation of the city environmental code. There is one inoperable vehicle on the property. In your attachment or packet is that car. It is the silver Mini Cooper. Staff has visited the property on many occasions, but has not been able to reach the residents or owners. The property owner and the residents have been notified by 2 letters sent April 28th and May 10th, according to section 38137 of the environmental code. Neither contact or by proactive abatement from the property owner, so we bring it to you today. Attached is the resolution that will allow staff to mitigate the environmental nuisance if the resolution is passed. The alternatives, number 1, the governing body may approve the attached resolution, or 2, the governing body may not approve the attached resolution. Staff recommends alternative number 1. And the fiscal note, any cost occurred in the towing of this vehicle will be assessed against the property owner. Any questions?
What's the resolution number? Do we know what the resolution?
26.
Yeah, 2926.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution number 2926-2022.
I can second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? That passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're at 1:30, which coincides with our 1:30 item indicated on the agenda. This is our presentation of the annual audit by Teresa Dazenbrock and Kristen Sekovic with Lewis Hooper and Dick. Would you like to
Hello.
begin the presentation? Let's go to the desktop. That's where the last thing was.
It was right there, yeah.
Where's
afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners.
Hello.
We'll somewhat hurry through this. You've got a big agenda. If you have questions, though, feel free to interrupt us, and we'll attempt to respond to those. You should have all received your bound audit report. I do want to point out within it is the transmittal letter and the management discussion and analysis. Those are good executive summaries of the activities and the financials of the city this past year, so worth reviewing. The notes to the financial statements are rather lengthy, but they do provide a good framework for you on how the financial statements are presented. The bound report also includes the statistical section, which will provide you with 10 years of information on a number of areas, interestingly, I think. And then the last section in the bound report is the single audit section that deals with your federal grants. We had no compliance problems in the federal grant area. If you want to advance, Kristen, the report itself, some of the highlights, it was an unmodified auditor's opinion on your financial statements. We had no material statutory violations to report. The statement of net position this year reflects total assets and deferred outflows for the city of $348.5 million. That's an increase of $37 million from the previous year. So over the last 4 years, it's grown $111 million. So pretty significant. The total revenues are reflected in the statement of activities, and this year it was just short of $117 million across all your funds. That's up $30.9 million from the prior year. And then the general fund itself, which many of your operations come out of, as far as the administrative side of the city, we saw a general fund balance increase of just over $3.7 million. The budgetary basis, the increase was a little over $1 million. So. The debt outstanding for the city at December 31st of 2021, the general obligation bonds that were not covered by the utility funds this year, we were at $49.3 million. That's up about $8.6 million, even after you issued $10.8 million new bonds this past year. But you're still at 48.3% of your debt margin. So you have room for additional debt if needed. The utility funds have general obligation bonds outstanding of $28.3 million. That's down about $2.5 million. So. And then there's some limited obligation bonds on the financial statements. These are actually the STAR bonds, just short of $2.6 million. There's no real financial obligation there, as the sales tax proceeds are to come in to cover that debt in conjunction with the state. Those bonds were down about $485,000 this past year. Then within the utility funds, you also have a few revenue loans. There's 2 of them with the state utility and KMEA. They totaled about $18.8 million at the end of December. So. And then we have just over $59 million in capital leases across all the funds in the city. That's down $202,000. The majority of those capital leases are in the utility funds, specifically the electric, with their leases with KMEA for Jameson Energy Center and Dogwood. Oh, one thing I might point out, not listed on that slide, but CAPER's unfunded pension liability that's reflected in the financial statements. This year it's at $17.4 million, which is actually down $5.1 million from the previous year. So. Some key items out of your enterprise funds, with electric, water, and sewer, and airport being the more significant ones. Current assets in the electric fund were up about 33%, or $13.5 million. When we reference the current assets, those are the ones that are more readily convertible to cash for needs of the enterprise. Water and sewer was up about 18% at just under 3 million, and the airport was up significantly, 9.6 million in total for them. Net positions, though, we were actually down on net position in the electric fund. We were at 28.8 million, which was reflective of about a 22% decrease. The operating revenues in that fund, however, were up about 12% this past year, or 3.5 million. So the water and sewer fund net position was up just short of 15%, and its net position was basically 35 million. Its operating revenues were up 1.6%, about 180,000. And then the airport's net position was just under 32% this past year, ending at 38.6 million. Operating revenues were up a percentage, dollar-wise, not a whole lot of increase, 4,000 in total, at 403,000 in operating revenues at the airport. And then you see there the investment that was made in each of those areas in their property plant infrastructure this past year. Concentrating then on a few of the graphs for the general fund. This first one deals with your revenues in 2021. Percentage-wise, there really wasn't very many of them that had much change. Two areas with larger percentage changes were the transfers in this year at 8.9% compared to previous years when it's averaged closer to 11%. And then police and municipal court, this year 4.43. Past years it's ranged from a little over 5% to 4.9%. So taxes is the biggest portion of the pie, 72.36% this year, compared to 72.9% the prior year, so down percentage-wise a little bit there. And we've broken those down further for you on the next graph since it was such a large portion of the pie. Sales tax is what makes up the biggest percentage over all of our taxes here in the city, 72.25% this past year. Percentage-wise didn't change much, with 72.37 last year. The others were very similar percentage-wise from the prior year, and even when you look in the statistical section back to 2012, 10 years ago, they were actually averaging fairly close, with sales tax actually being about 1% less than it is now. So. And here we have then the comparison of the revenues in the general fund over that 10-year period. The green bar on the top is your sales tax proceeds, and you can see how it has increased over time from a little over 9.5 million to the current 13.5 million to 14 million. The property and motor vehicle taxes is the red bar on the bottom. The increases you see there are not a lot of increases, and what increases have occurred have really occurred due to the growth in new construction we've experienced here in the city. When we actually look at the mill levy in this 10-year period, the mill levy has actually gone down 0.4 mils. So. Expenditure-wise, really there's only about 3 areas that saw any change in their percentage from this year to the previous year or two, and that's the transfers out. 6% this year. Previous year it was 8%. Then we saw an increase in capital improvements. It was 10% versus 7%. And development, planning, engineering, inspection, a lot of the littler departments, smaller areas, is at 4% this year compared to 5% in the prior couple of years.
Teresa, I had a question on this one. Is there a reason why we do police and municipal court together, or, I mean, can it be broken apart? I was just wondering.
It probably could, it's just a matter of over time, that's what's always been done with it.
Okay.
And it's was one of the smaller departments at the time that happened. And so a lot of those just get combined.
Yeah, I was wondering, because I know fire is broken out, and I didn't know how that compared, and so I didn't.
We just kind of treat it as they're related
They're big, yep.
entities, and,
Okay.
but if, we're more than happy to break that out in the future if you'd like us to. Kind of comes back with on our next one, cemetery, parks, and zoo.
Yeah, I know, yeah, that one is like.
Kind of a
All
weird
together,
mixture, yeah. But here you'll see in the dollars on police and municipal court, there was an increase that occurred in about 2015, and a large part of that is really due to additional positions that have been added into the city. And then as the employee benefits over time had moved from separate fund into the departments. So, the increase you see in the cemetery, park, zoo area that occurred in 2017, 18 in that time frame was due to the pool operations, but we also had some storm damage. We were cleaning up one of those years and stuff. And then the change in capital improvements, you'll see there that 2020 in the middle there was kind of down. That was a result of bonding more capital projects that year instead of covering them through the capital outlay fund, or capital outlay line item. So in total then, comparison of revenues and expenditures in the general fund, you can see we did have increases in 2021, but fairly consistent growth in most of it across the 10-year period. There were only 2 years out of the 10 where the revenues were less than the expenditures, so that's helped you maintain that cash balance and hold the mill levy constant. 2012 and 2017 were the years that revenue was less than expenditures. Then we also have a graph for you comparing the expenditures of federal awards. Now, one thing I want to make sure and point out is pay attention to the axis on the left side there. That's going up in multiples of 10. We did that because the transportation grants over time had been so much larger that you couldn't see the changes occurring in the other grant areas. But transportation includes the Tiger grants, the FAA grants, ICE-T grants over time. So with the most current increases in the last 2 years being due to the AIP projects. And then in 2021, you also had a new grant in there for the recreational trails of $157,000. So those middle years when transportation was up in 15 and 16 were a result of the Tiger grant for the railroad that ran through the city. Justice Department, a lot of those are for the police department, but in recent years, here in 2020 and 2021, we've got some Project Safe Neighborhood and COVID money flowing through there. The same with HUD and CDBG. They were up the last couple of years because of funding as a result of that. CDBG went up $509,000 in 2020. That was down a little bit then here in 2021. And the miscellaneous other, 2020, you had $803,000 in COVID money come in. 2021, it was $2.2 million. So then the last few graphs we've got, we always like to show you since everybody's in budget mode at this time of year, comparison of budget information for the city of Garden City to some of the other first-class cities. It's based on the information from the League of Municipalities for the budgets that were approved a year ago at this time. And we've got 16 cities that we're looking at in this group. And I think it's pretty consistent, the same 16 cities you had last year. The first one deals with your assessed valuation for 2021. Garden City is in there about a third of the way. we were at 246 million last year in valuation. That was an increase then of 3.1% or 7.4 million. I haven't heard current valuation, but I'm expecting it would be up. Dodge City Liberal are less than Garden City is. Liberal last year was up less than 1% at $1 million increase, and Dodge City was only up 1.36% with $2.4 million increase. So, Lenexa is kind of the high end, and they were up about 6.6% last year. A couple of these graphs deal with debt, and I'll remind everybody it's only as good as the information they report. So it may not be all inclusive of everything. In some instances, I think they've included industrial revenue bonds. Some of them I don't think do so. But debt per capita for 2020, Garden City was in about the fourth from the highest. At $3,183 per capita. Dodge City was a little bit higher than us at $3,802. Liberal towards the lower end at $1,558. Of course, that's also a factor of the population that gets reported, and Garden City's population was reported at 26,000 last year, which is probably understated. And then just looking at the total general obligation bonds in 2020, how they compare. Liberal's not quite the lowest. It switched position and had been the lowest the previous year. Dodge City's in about the middle, and we're towards the other higher end there. So. Levy-wise, though, maybe of more interest. For the city's levy, Garden City's right in the middle of the mix. We were at 38.512 mils. Dodge City's a couple steps away from us at 43.859. They were 5.3, almost 5.4 mils higher than Garden last year. Liberals on the high end, they were 52.6 mils, a little over 14 mils higher than we are here in Garden City. So. And that's just the city's mill levy. When we look at the picture, we also show you what the total mill levy for all the combined taxing entities a resident within Garden City or the respective cities would pay. Keep in mind, most of them, when you combine them like this, are pretty comparative, but not all of the entities have community colleges in their counties, so about half of them do not. Garden City, we were towards the top there at 165.735 mils, slight increase from the previous year overall as a result of the other entities that we've combined into this picture. Dodge City and Liberal were the two highest. Dodge City was 15.8 mils higher overall than a homeowner would pay here in Garden City, and Liberal was 24.7 mils higher for that same time period.
What are examples of the other? I was curious.
The other?
The other tax, is it?
Okay.
Is it local taxes or is it?
It depends how entities are structured. You might have some townships, you might have some fire districts, cemetery districts. What others, Kristen?
We now
Come to
have
mind.
an extension district.
Yeah,
Is that what it is?
some counties will have extension districts now instead of running that through the county. Yeah. There will be some counties, I don't know if I don't think there's any in this comparative, but some will have hospitals. They might have separate hospital districts, or they're funding hospitals through their county's levy. So that was the highlights. We certainly appreciate all the assistance we got this year kind of made it, I think, a challenge. It was a new experience for Jared, but he and his office did very well. So we appreciated all the assistance we got from everybody. Questions or? Feel free if you do. I know you're just eager to sit down and read through the whole book. When you are, feel free to contact myself or Kristen, and we're more than happy to try and address those questions for you. So,
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Item B, the governing body is asked to consider and approve the request for proposals seeking an enterprise resource planning software solution. Derek?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Since 2003, the city has used MIP fund accounting software as the core ERP application. The city also utilizes several additional software applications, some developed in-house and others provided through a variety of software vendors. So due to the use of these different systems, all applications are not fully integrated. So the city must maintain multiple systems to meet our intended business objectives. Many of these systems are outdated and hard to maintain. This creates many unnecessary workflows that are time consuming and keep staff from being more efficient. So our alternatives are 1, approve the RFP, 2, deny the RFP, 3, give staff further direction. Staff's recommendation is to approve alternative number 1. The fiscal note on this is the revised 22 and proposed 2023 budget has $2 million budgeted for this project. Funding is coming from use tax collections significantly above what was initially projected. So this has allowed the city to move forward on this project quicker than what was initially anticipated. So, is there any questions?
I'll make a motion that we approve the RFP as presented.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? That passes. Thank you, Derek.
So I just have so when you do the RFP, will you have presentations from the different vendors, or you've already
Correct.
contacted several, or?
Yes, we have already contacted several, and then we will have presentation. If the bids are unclear, or if we want to bring them in and get a demo of them, we will bring them in.
I note that Commissioner Ortiz has stepped down for the next item.
Item C, the governing body is asked to consider and approve the request for proposals seeking design and construction management services from qualified firms or individuals for the remodel of the law enforcement center. Derek?
The Garden City Police Department has had an organizational study done by McGrath Consulting Group in 2019. One of the identified recommendations was concerning workspace and future growth. Staff, in conjunction with the Finney County Sheriff's Office, has identified a plan to repurpose the created space within the LEC due to the newly remodeled municipal court and evidence storage facility at 310 North 7th Street. Both entities have agreed to a plan to reallocate this space to better fit the needs of both organizations. On April 5th, 2022, the governing body authorized a similar RFP for professional services for the LEC remodel. Staff received one bid from GLMB Architecture for only design services that was denied by the governing body due to the project scope and overall cost. So the alternatives would be to improve the RFP, number 2 would be to deny the RFP, and 3 would be to give staff further direction. The recommendation from staff would be to approve alternative number 1, and the fiscal note on this is in fiscal year 2022 budget, the GCPD has allocated $150,000 out of building repairs that would be used towards the remodel.
I'll make a motion we approve the RFP as presented.
I'll second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. So when you talk about the municipal court, were there funds left over? I mean, did we go over budget? I'm trying to remember, and I tried to look it up. Did we stay right at budget on the municipal court, or were those funds tied together?
But I believe this project and municipal court are 2 different projects.
So this was already earmarked, the $150,000 for the LEC? Okay. And this is enough to complete the recommendation?
Yeah, and it's about 7,000 square foot, and it's mainly cosmetic. It's just no low-bearing walls will be moved or anything like that.
Well, I know that they're kind of on top of each other there, so
Right,
yeah.
right.
So I mean, not that they don't need the space, because I know that they do. I just didn't know if the $150,000 was a
Yeah.
realistic estimate to really do the work, so,
We're hoping it should be plenty to cover that cost.
thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? That passes. Thank you. We'll wait for a sec from Commissioner Ortiz.
As we're waiting for Commissioner
here.
Ortiz to come back, the city clerk reminded me that the action that was necessary after item 12A would have been to accept, the governing body to consider accepting the annual financial report.
Oh, okay.
I'll make a motion that we accept the annual comprehensive financial report as presented to the body.
I'll second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? That passes.
Thank you, Sealand. We're going to skip to E, if that's all right, because I believe County Commission Chair Pishney would like to attend for the discussion regarding birds on item D.
He is
So-
here. Okay.
Oh, he is?
But he says he wants to keep us going. He wants to see more of our meeting
Okay, all
before we.
right. The government item, is that true or sarcastic?
Well, he was saying to keep on going, but if we want to get
He
to
had
it.
the thumbs up saying, yeah, keep going.
We can keep it in order.
I mean, we had it on the agenda for 2:30.
And in case there's somebody else that wants to show
Right.
up, we probably
Yeah.
should. Okay. Item E, the governing body is asked to consider and approve the application for federal assistance in the amount of $4,553,575 for construction of the new terminal building at the Garden City Regional Airport, otherwise known, henceforth known as AIP 03-2000024-047-2022. Rochelle.
Good afternoon. I apologize for the casual look today. Today was moving day, so this afternoon flight, we're working out of the temporary structure. So
All right.
found a little glitches that we need to fix, but overall, we think it's going to be a great facility. It's a lot of room. We were actually able to, it was a mobile home unit, first of all, and so we used some of the bedrooms for like a nursery and a playroom. So hopefully that'll give some of our traveling families some extra room to go and kind of move away from the general crowd in case our kids want to play or need some quiet time. So with that, we are operating out of the temporary facility. In front of you, like Matt said, is AIP 47, and this is our AIP entitlement funds in this amount. So we're utilizing all the past funds that we've had rolled over from other projects as well as 2023 to allocate to the terminal project.
I'll make a motion to approve the application as presented.
I'll second. Yeah, I thought you were going to read the whole thing, and I was waiting for that.
No.
There's a motion. A motion and a
Just hitting all
second.
the
Is
numbers
there
here.
any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes.
The next item related, item F, the governing body is asked to consider and approve the application for federal assistance in the amount of $17,192,856 for the construction of the new terminal building. This would be AIP 46. Rochelle.
So again, this is the CARES Act. Originally, we were allocated $17.9 million, and then the FA said, you know what, we'll give you this amount. And so we asked for reimbursement for some of our expenses, and then we allocated those reimbursements to the project. The leftover balance plus what wasn't originally awarded are all going to get reallocated into AIP 46 in the amount of $17.1 million to be applied to the construction of the terminal project as well.
Yeah, I move that we approve the application for federal assistance.
Second.
Right. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
No, I do want to just say, I really appreciate the report. I cannot believe how many passengers and what an asset the airport is compared to even regional, other airports in our region.
Thank you.
So I guess I never had paid attention, but just really great work, and I think this is going to just make the difference, so.
Yeah, thank you. And like you said, May was another record-breaking
Yeah, I
month
just
for us
cannot
for
believe it.
employment. So yeah, all the staff out there, city staff, TSA, airlines, everybody's really making and coming together to make the airport work throughout this construction with the increased passengers as well.
Yeah, and if you didn't see the report, normally Garden City does about an equal amount of traffic as Hayes, Dodge, and Liberal combined. So we about do half, they do about half. Right now, we're doing more than twice.
Yeah.
It doesn't have all of Hayes' numbers in there, but
Yeah.
we're up there about a lot more than
Yeah, I was
normally.
just shocked. It was a great report.
So I think we're to a vote.
Yep.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good
Rochelle.
luck.
Item G, the governing body is asked to consider and approve the design for Garden City Skate Park that is to be located in Phillips Scout Park and to authorize staff to proceed with the creation of construction documents. Aaron.
Afternoon again. Spoon Ranch was selected to do the design and construction, and they have put in front of us what they call a 75% design, meaning now's the time for any additional feedback before they move into construction documents, and eventually we'll bring that back, and then once approved, they'll move into construction. So if you can scroll down, Matt, we'll show them some of the design here, and I'll kind of go over what's out there. So they've kind of included the following design elements, which is the streetscape combination beginner intermediate bowl, quarter pipe and half pipes, and the pump track. So this is designed for all levels, which the beginning level would be kind of that small section in the middle, and that's going to be where kids learn, and then they advance on around the park, including from the streetscape to the bowl. So the more you move into the deeper part of the bowl, the harder it gets. The half pipe there, and have both the what would be the south end, and you can see the actual half pipe within the right by the entrance there. Again, as you build up from a quarter pipe to half pipe, tricks get bigger and harder, and that continues to grow their skill level. The pump track is actually to the east side, and the east being the top of the picture. The interior lanes provide for a more advanced ride, and anybody can ride on a pump track. So it's not just for bikes, it's for skateboards, roller skates. And the new element to this sport is actually wheelchair. So this provides for all of that. The exterior loop would be the more beginner level loop on that pump track. And then so all this combined provides for a very broad level of skill range, from beginner all the way up to certain advanced techniques. So, and Matt, if you want to scroll down, they'll give some different angles so you can kind of see depth and what that looks like. And I would happily take any questions or comments about the park.
So I noticed that they were doing some artificial turf, and then, so the rest is it going to be natural grass, and then I like the landscaping that we're keeping it as low. We just had a big water discussion, so that you're keeping it as low maintenance as possible. But can you talk a little about the use of artificial turf and how that's going to help?
Yeah, Matt, if you want to scroll down some and keep going. Another one. There should be a landscape plan in there. Keep going. There we go. So the artificial, which is that lighter green, right in the middle, and you can see that it's highlighted there. The reason that they use artificial turf is those are what they consider high impact areas. A lot of cross traffic, walking. If they're on a bike, they'll ride across that. So to prevent unnecessary wear, that artificial turf has been selected to make sure that you don't end up with a worn-in trail of what would be natural turf. So that artificial turf will prevent that from happening. And then, of course, we're using our more natural elements around the park. There will be, turf grass in there as well. But the idea is to reduce that down and not only reduce maintenance, but reduce water use.
Yeah, because I was curious about how they determine the amount of it. I'm wondering if there would be a bigger savings and just a wear and tear on everything if you used additional. Or is it more expensive than natural turf?
So the cost in artificial turf is all up front. So if you look at just a 20-year average, it usually works out to be about the same, generally speaking. Okay. In smaller elements like this, that I don't know that that's true. I know in the, particularly I can lean on athletic fields. You either pay up front or you pay over time. Yeah, I can't imagine that's going to be that much different in this application. Those are considered the high wear patterns because of where you would cross from one section of the park to the other, in particular the pump track to the skate park. With the berming, they're helping to reduce people from trying to walk through that, and especially as you put those natural elements in that become a taller grass or a taller flower or shrub, that kind of prevents people from cutting through there. So really the idea is to actually design pathways that people are going to take and create natural barriers to prevent them from wearing out the other. Did I answer your question?
No, and I just wanted to say, I really appreciated the input, the design input, the information and how it was presented. There's some really great, some very great comments in here, and so and the design is incredible, so yeah.
Yeah. So also what was included in this packet, and just as we're trying to identify the future use of this park and going forward, and Matt, if you'll scroll kind of all the way to the end, right there's kind of the lighting plan. If you're interested in how many lumens are on each section of the park, otherwise just know that we are lighting the park to the proper candle power, and people will be able to use that at night. So, but if we go to the end, one of the other things that we asked Spoon Ranch to start exploring was an inline hockey rink. We talked about this in kind of the concept plan, and we've asked them, oh, it's all the way at the end, sorry. We've asked them to kind of concept that out, which we included in this practice, and kind of put a price point to that just for future reference. And we will kind of bring that up at later dates, either through the budget process, because right now that's obviously an unbudgeted item. But looking at that, that's kind of just a real rough layout of what a full-size inline rink would be to the north there. What we've talked about is obviously just a concrete, painting the lines on the concrete, sealing those in, so that would be the surface. So we'll hopefully have some more information at a future date for that one. But as we talk about developing that park completely out, we wanted to try to identify that, and if there's the potential that we can save by them already being mobilized, and we can, kill two birds with one stone, we'll look at that as an option, and of course that would be for the governing body to decide if that's the route they want to go. But the item before you today is just the skate park, and we did add a 5% contingency because that was not in the overall pricing. So your alternatives is you can approve the design and authorize staff to proceed with the development of construction documents for a project not to exceed $1,070,790, or the governing body can deny and direct staff how to move forward.
So the cost estimate, was that done by Spawn? Is that something
the pricing for the skate park? Yes, that's done by
So the
Spoon Ranch, sorry.
Spoon Ranch, yeah. Sorry, so it just states that total project cost is $825,000, and a portion of that revenue from the 2021 Series B general obligation bonds would cover that. But for the design, it's presented as $1,019,800. Is when this hasn't been put out to bid, correct? This is just an estimated. It has been?
No, they will do the design. They will build the park for that amount.
Okay.
Originally, when we sent out for the design and build bid, which Spoon Ranch was the winner of,
Right.
They have now come back. This is the cost to build the park. And when we set that out there, we set that out there with an $825,000 budget.
Okay.
Recognizing that things have changed as far as market pricing and that kind of stuff. This is the park that they have presented with the idea of, if we can afford to build this, then we will, if the governing body approves, or you can direct us to do something different.
I just want to make sure that we got everything in there, just like from their cost assessment or their bid packet, some of the exclusions in there, it lists what they're excluding, but I didn't see anything in there about construction administration on the review of some items that would be submitted. So who's taking care of that? Also, how are we handling the electrical service as far as the connections for that? I know the city a lot of the projects, when we handle projects, it's 5 foot or 8 foot out from the building property line. So where is that?
There is power over to, just to the west side of that park where it's stated to go in. So that was the intended connection point in that area. The reason we put that 5% contingency in, or why I'm asking for that 5% contingency, is for the exact reason that you stated. There are things that always come up, and we want to make sure that we have some funds available for that.
Is there water supplied? Are they doing the water install for sprinklers, or are we?
Yeah, that'll be part of the landscape project.
I'll make a motion, we approve the design and authorize staff to proceed with the development of the construction documents for the project not to exceed $1,070,790.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there further discussion?
I do like to just go ahead and, I have more. Not a whole lot more.
I could
but-
tell with that second.
Yeah. Well, I'm not involved in like the committee on how this was handled or what was discussed, but for future purposes, I know like we've been going into robotics and having these discussions with, especially this new paint robotic. Is there any point in the future where we would look at electronic motorized mowers where a lot of them, if you think of a Roomba.
We already are.
Okay.
The golf course is demoing a Husqvarna automatic mower, so they're basically beta testing it for Parks and Recreation.
Sure.
The technology there for large-scale applications is, I guess the word I've received, it's coming. And what we're talking about is multiple acres. Right now, they can get up to an acre fairly well and fairly efficiently. But if you're talking about, Southeast Park's 7 acres.
Yeah.
So I think part of what I'm waiting for is when can we get something that can do 10, 20 acres, and then we can get Garcia and Esquivel. And
Right.
so yes, that is coming, and we are working towards that.
Well, so the idea that this money comes from the 2021 GEO bond. So this is money that we already have allocated. It says Southeast Community Park, but again, so I realized that we added some in for the skate park. I didn't realize we added that much. But, so this is where those dollars come from, so there's not any additional bonding necessary?
Correct. In the 2021 bond, that was bonded for both Southeast Park and the skate park.
Okay.
The excess dollars from the 2020 GEO bond were identified for Southeast Park, meaning we can spend a little more on the skate park and still have, actually, there's still enough left over that we have increased our budget slightly for even Southeast Park. So,
Southeast Park, you have toilets and restrooms and a band shell that you got to construct there. I don't know what the cost difference is as far as concrete with a bowl.
The current budget for phase 3 is, it was 1.6. With the remaining funds, we've estimated about 1.8 could be spent on Southeast Park.
I call for the vote. I mean, we're kind of veering off of what I understand is Parks and Rec, but the questioning should be more focused on the design and scope of the skate park. If commissioners have concerns about, other items on the rec, I get that, and they could probably discuss that with the director, not during the meeting. I mean, I think we should direct our questioning and focus it on the design and the expenditure and investment into the skate park itself.
Yeah.
So I call for the vote.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? That passes.
Item H, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a settlement agreement and release with Wheatland Electric Cooperative, Inc. in case 18CV 72. Mike? I'm sorry, Jennifer?
The way Mike pointed at me, looks like it's my turn. I apologize. I have really bad allergies, so if it's hard to understand me, I have a little bit of a voice left. This is attached to this memo is what's most important for your focus. I'm sure you all have reviewed it. It's a settlement agreement between the City of Garden City and Wheatland Electric Cooperative. This is a The case number is 18CV72. This is a case, the background of this memo basically details essentially the track of the case from district court to the Court of Appeals. The district court ruled in the city's favor. Wheatland Electric Cooperative appealed that decision to the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals overturned the district court's decision and reversed that and turned it back to district court. The City of Garden City then appealed that decision to the Supreme Court. And for those who aren't aware of how that works, the Supreme Court only takes a limited number of cases, and they did not select our case for review here. And so the case was remanded to district court, and this was an agreement that attached here that Wheatland Electric Cooperative and the City of Garden City came to together, and is asking for your approval of that agreement. Both staff and legal counsel recommend approval of the agreement as it's attached. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, I understand this is like part of the history of this has been going on since 2007. This is not something that happened in 2018. And whether or not that was included in the memo, I still think that's important to bring up, that this is something that didn't happen overnight or since 2018. But this has been something that's been going on for quite a while, and now we're at this point where we've exhausted every opportunity that we have.
That's correct. If we were to include every detail of this entire case in this memo, it probably would have been many, many, many more pages long. Court cases that move from district court to the Court of Appeals to the Supreme Court take many years. And so, yes, this case started many years ago, back in 2007. And what's before you today and before this governing body is something that probably many other governing bodies have considered along the way as it moved through the court system. But this is what's in front of you today.
So as far as the amount, this is the court-ordered amount, is that correct? Or that we've approved as a settlement amount, is that correct?
This is a settlement agreement. This is something that your counsel and your staff is recommending approval for. The court has not entered a judgment on this amount.
Well, I move that we approve the settlement amount of $9,392,426 and then $4,656.30.50 within 7 days after June 21st, 2022. The second payment that should be made by the city after June 21st, 2022. I'm sorry, and to the city, to the Wheatland Electric Company, and $4,736,395 and $395.50 within 7 days after January 3rd, 2023. Upon the receipt by Wheatland's Electric Company of the settlement amount, Wheatland's Electric Company shall, within 7 days therein, file a dismissal with prejudice of the suit and the parties to bear their own costs and the attorney fees.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes.
Item 12I, the governing body is asked to consider and approve appointing James Mcgowan to a 3-year term on the Traffic Advisory Committee.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commission.
Bless you.
Thanks again, Jennifer. I didn't realize your throat was.
That's okay. No worries.
Yeah,
So
don't you
the,
feel like a
I
heel?
lucked out.
The Traffic Advisory Committee currently has 2 open positions on that committee. Both openings are for 3-year terms, and James L. Mcgowan of Garden City has applied to serve on the committee. We've met with James, and he's eager to serve the governing body if you so choose to place him on that Traffic Advisory Committee. And we, at the present time, we have no other applications to serve. So your alternatives would be to appoint James to the 3-year Traffic Advisory Committee, or make a different appointment, or do whatever you want to do best. But we have no recommendation to it, and there's no financial impact by appointing him to that committee.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to appoint James Mcgowan to the 3-year term on the Traffic Advisory Committee.
Second?
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes.
Thank you.
It's all right with you, Mayor. We'll go ahead and knock out the consent agenda, and then that would leave us with the 230 item D, and item J, and then commission reports at the end. Is that good? Consent agenda, if approved, or if you don't want to pull any of those items off, would be K1 through 3.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda, K1 through 3.
Second.
Right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Like you said, I don't think we'll be able to get through Jared's stuff in 9 minutes,
You can
although.
talk fast, but not
although-
I think if it's all right, we can proceed with 12D.
Yeah.
The governing body is asked to consider the discussion from June 6th and provide some direction regarding the topic of the joint meeting, which generally described as birds, although there was some specific species. And I know County Commission Chair Pishney's joined us today as well. So I'll turn it over to you, Mayor, to give some order to this discussion.
Well, I think what the county was looking for from us was kind of to gauge our level of interest in exploring this topic further. So I think the first step would be to discuss, if you had any discussion, to talk about that and come to some kind of consensus. I believe Commissioner Pishney's here if we need him for reference. And I see Roxanne is also here from CVB, I assume, for a similar resource. So is there anybody who has thoughts about this, on what way we'd like to move forward with this project?
I think, just hearing the 3 options from that submittal and maybe just going over those high topics would probably help explain to everybody here what's actually being discussed.
Okay. So who?
I've got them called up on the screen. Would you like me to read options 1?
Yeah.
options
Yeah,
two?
I don't have
Go ahead.
that downloaded
Options
online.
1, program expansion into Garden City, Finney County, Kansas. Create a biological science technician position stationed in Finney County. The position would serve Finney County, Garden City, and surrounding areas. Having a continuous presence in the area would allow for prompt and complete service while implementing an integrated wildlife damage management program. Project requests would receive the attention they require to be resolved, and if need be, have return services necessary. With a locally stationed presence, roosting issues could be eliminated as flocks are moved or reduced to levels acceptable by residents and stakeholders. Flocks depredating nearby could also be reduced to see resolution for local businesses. Having a position stationed locally would render the most expedient, consistent results for the issues observed in this area. A cost estimate has been attached for the biological science technician, and I believe that's that $89,471. Number 2, ad hoc services provided. Services can be provided on a case-by-case basis. Field service agreements, or FSAs, will be developed each time our service is requested. The FSA will reflect the resources and input costs it would take to satisfy each request as they are received. Results of ad hoc work are usually good but can be temporary due to its short-lived nature. Option 3, provide technical assistance. Assistance is provided per request virtually. WS will provide, I think that's Wildlife Services, will provide technical assistance when contacted by individuals experiencing wildlife issues. The best success is achieved when the inquiring party uses the information exchanged and carries it out until the issue is completely resolved. Results vary greatly with type of assistance due to of the inquiring party's ability to manage wildlife issues.
Thank you. And I think it is worth pointing out that the alternatives that we're looking at for this specifically right now is either to indicate at Finney County that there's interest in exploring the topic further, indicate to the county that there's not an interest in exploring the topic further, or discuss and wait for further communication or a proposal from Finney County. So we're not, I wouldn't say we're necessarily, I mean, we could discuss the different options there, but yeah, we're not necessarily picking an option at this time. Just kind of talking about our willingness to continue on down this path with the county, or what our role with the county would be.
Has the county discussed this any further? Has the county commission discussed this any further than where we were at the joint meeting?
Commissioner, and for those, I guess you're recording online, Lon Pishney, Chairman of Finney County Commission. And as Rochelle had her disclaimer about her dress, this is my non-county commission dress, day dress. Yeah, I was just gonna pull up one thing here real quick so I don't forget. But the additional discussion that we've had, Commissioner, is just yesterday, I asked my fellow commissioners whether or not they wanted to continue any discussion, kind of what the mayor just professed. And the discussion there was, yes, we are interested in continuing the discussion. No proposal has been set forth. Two things that were by consensus that were agreed upon is gathering some additional information from our community. We know there's several businesses and hoteliers that have and restaurants that have provided complaints about this issue. But are there other residential people who have had issues that they think are important to this discussion? And then secondly, the funding aspect, if no matter what option is chosen, and the sentiment of the commissioners yesterday, and we were minus Dwayne Drees, who was out cutting wheat, so I don't know what his input is for sure, is that the county is interested in pursuing something to address the issue, but what is it? And the county, according to the sentiment yesterday, is not necessarily interested in funding 100%, interested in finding some partners. But if you recall from the joint session, when we find partners for the funding, and I'm not discounting that, I'm not saying that's a bad idea, but we have to remember that the percentage of funding equates to the percentage or the amount of service that funder receives with regard to the addressing the mitigation of the birds. And then lastly, not to your point, but lastly, and those three options pretty much spell this out. Is it a long-term effect that we want to have, or is it just something temporary that we want to move the birds from one area to the other and it becomes somebody else's problem, or do we want a longer-term solution? So as we're thinking about this, if you decide you want to continue along with us in this discussion, we need to be thinking a long-term solution versus a temporary solution to the issue.
So as far as the Kansas Wildlife and Parks, do they see this as an issue, or do they see that they have any partnership or culpability in helping as far as statewide efforts, or is it simply a community by community or region by region?
Well, first of all, I don't know what the state wildlife services, I don't know what their position is. This is all through the USDA and the Federal Wildlife Services. They're based in, these field people are based in Manhattan, but I don't know what the state's position is, but this is something that USDA and the Federal Wildlife Services are doing throughout the country and several other places within Kansas at this point.
And I drove around trying to find the hotels that were, maybe this was, and I don't know if they're located in a certain area. I mean, the hoteliers do a really good job of keeping their properties up already. And so I wasn't able to kind of locate. I was trying to find the ones where they might have an issue, or, and I think it's in areas where there's also food vendors or food, places where they serve food. But like I said, I couldn't find any that was like an overabundance of anything where, so I didn't know if that's.
Roxanne would probably be better suited to address that, but I do know the hotels that are by the ammonia training facility are highly affected. The ammonia training facility itself is highly affected. It's affected the tree, the health of the trees, as well as the other health issues for people and the other situations. And then I know up on the hill, the Best Western in that area, they've had some issues with that. Was the Holiday Express, I think it's now called Country Inn and Suites or something of that nature. I haven't talked to them personally, but I know that's been reported to me as areas that are concerned from the hotel restaurant standpoint.
Did you have any, because I like having local resources or like having local assets. So, I mean, do you have a preference? I mean, I know we're talking about doing this further, but as far as you talk about long-term effects, and so I'm interested in exploring it further as far as but the funding is what I think is really the stickler and how that works. So for me, so.
Yeah. Well, first of all, yes, I think there should be somebody here locally that's addressing it on a full-time basis. And that's his option number one that Jason put into his report. It's a biology person, somebody who really understands the issue, understands the patterns and so forth, understands the times they're going to be here, the migratory patterns, if you will. And so I think that part of it lends itself to a longer term solution. Now, the other things that they've provided in option 2 and 3 as ideas certainly can help, alleviate the issue. But does it alleviate the health issue that we have with restaurants and so forth? Does it alleviate the situation over more than a month or two? Not necessarily.
Any other questions for Commissioner Fishney?
I do, not questions, but I just, statement-wise, I think that, I mean, I learned a lot through Jason's report and realizing that in the years coming up, as a resident, I do have a problem in my backyard with these birds. I mean, I set out dog food and those birds are just taking my dog food, and that's costing me money out of my pocket. But I'm sure like there's a lot of residents in town that don't know what to do about this nuisance, if you want to call it that. But listening to Jason's report, just it makes a lot of sense, and getting that into the community and hearing what they have to say or what they are having issues with. Because I mean, it feels like every weekend I'm washing bird droppings off of my patio and patio furniture and things. And my dogs, I got 2 dogs, but they don't like to hunt or scare away birds. So, but it's just an extra work for me, and I think for a lot of residents too. It's not just at hotels or it's not just at other businesses, but when you do hear out-of-folk residents come into town and they're shopping and they make these comments about, it seems like a scene from a Blackbird movie of crows or whatever. It is. It's those little comments like that really stick with the town. And I would be for investigating a little more of what the community has to say in regards to a solution. And these are probably some good solutions that we can move forward with getting a response.
And Mr. Mayor, permit me just one last, a couple last points. Number one, I don't mind being the point person on this. I don't have the solutions. That's why I asked those folks from Manhattan to come in and do a field trip in February. I knew myself what I was seeing, but I don't have the answers to that. We've got to find the experts. I don't mind being the point person. Secondly, I've forwarded to you, I believe, a couple of things that Jason provided to me following that joint meeting, and if my recollection is correct, I think I forwarded those just to you and some county people. I don't know, did the others receive?
That's normally, I mean, with the way we do government, normally our city manager is the one who's the point person for the commission, because I can't forward
No, that's
things on
fine,
right, but yeah, so I did not.
If I need to provide that again, I can, but I did provide the mayor with 2 different follow-ups from Jason that had handouts.
Yeah, they're the next 400 or 500 pages in this packet.
And that's fine. But the last thing
I wondered if they were.
the last thing to that, I'm going to send out another one, and I can certainly send it to you, Mayor, or I can send it directly to Matt that I just received today, because we did get feedback from one resident in our community who had a little different opinion, but not all of his information was accurate. So Jason and Frank, the guy who accompanied him in February, responded to that. It's a 3-page email. I just received it before I came over here this afternoon, and I plan to forward that to you.
Yeah, go
Just
ahead.
to further explain some of the misconceptions about some of this.
Yeah, go ahead and forward that to Matt so he can
Okay.
get it to the rest of ours.
I can do that.
Commissioners, at yesterday's meeting, when
Yes.
this was brought up, what I heard was the other three commissioners present, indicate that they weren't necessarily interested in moving forward because it didn't sound to them at this meeting that the city was interested in moving forward. And I was like, well, we haven't talked about it. Later in the meeting, when I was able to speak on another issue, I did come up and say, like, we haven't talked about it. The mayor has asked me to put this on the agenda just because he felt the discussion warranted that. But I also indicated, that meeting there was very few people that were invited to be involved in that. And that presentation was the first time a lot of us saw the detail of a proposal or an idea or even a problem. Well, there wasn't a proposal, a problem statement. And to hear that perspective of it. And I thought there was a lot of good follow-up questions, especially by those that hadn't been exposed to the discussion before about, okay, we hear the anecdotes, we hear that. And it sounded like there was some requests for some follow-up data. So would actually be interested in getting some of that to the extent it's available, or acknowledge that that's not available. We're going to have to make the decision independent of that. But at some point in time, if the commission wants to move forward with the discussion with stakeholders, as however broadly it's defined, if it's just Finney County or if it's Finney County and private sector, both, what you think the role is it to wait and receive a proposal from Finney County saying, we would like to do this partnership for this person, this field service agent, and we'd like you to consider a 25%, 50%, 90%, whatever they're asking for, cost share. Right now it kind of feels like problem statement, hand it off. You tell us what you want to do and what you're willing to pay for it, and then we can go from there. And I don't know that that's what it wasn't what I was expecting necessarily when we went over there. So my sense is that the questions that were asked in the meeting weren't opposition, as it appeared to be interpreted by 3 of the 4 county commissioners present yesterday as opposition to the idea. It was,
Need more information.
this is the first active conversation we've had on the topic. May we ask a question?
Because there was a concern from, some residents, again, I think, because of the way the presentation was, is these are happening in some places where there's abundance of feed and then the birds are coming into the city. Well, and again, the idea of, mass deaths of birds in the city. And that was the concern, of a couple of people I spoke with, so actually, we're poisoning. It sounded like the only viable opportunity, but that was their main concern also, is that, now it becomes a city problem, but again, I pointed out, it really is we're all involved in the problem.
Yeah.
But, where the solution happens, it seems like it was within the city, so.
And I would also, I don't know what the arrangement is, if that position is a USDA or federal government position, or if it would be a county position or anticipated to be something like that. But we had a similarly priced position that we jointly went into agreement with in January of 2021, and that was a city position, and that rug got yanked out from underneath the city commission 5 months later. And you had hired somebody who's still on staff, and we're paying 100% of that when we agreed to a 50-50 partnership.
Yes, Commissioner.
Mr. Mayor, just to make the point about whose employee it would be. It would be a USDA employee. The funding would come into some pot here and paid to USDA, but it would be a USDA employee.
Okay.
So if one of the contributors were to no longer put into that pot, is the balance of the stakeholders responsible for the ongoing expense? That's what, you don't have the answer to that. We don't have a proposal, but I do think that would be one safeguard that the city of Garden City would be interested in, so that what happened to us in 2021 didn't happen to us again in 2022.
I fully respect that, and I wouldn't want that to happen either, but it would be by contract, so
Right.
we'd have to figure out how that contract is written and so forth. But yes, I fully respect that, Matt. I wouldn't want to be in that position either.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Sessa, do you have any thoughts or?
Well, it sounds like we're interested in getting more information on this subject. You know, I just have a lot of questions on, again, kind of what the city manager raised on, you know, how this will look as we move forward. I think we're trying to look for a solution. There's migrating birds that come through during the year, and it does create a nuisance, but I don't know, I just need more information before I can make a decision on this.
Yeah, and the only other thing that I'd put in is I have been trying to ask every newcomer to our town, industrial, prospect-wise or otherwise, about this, about what's your thoughts on a bird issue that you see from your time here in Garden City. And I got ranges of, I don't know what you're talking about, to are you serious? Are you actually asking me is there a problem or not? In the terms of it's not even there. So I would say that there probably is different times of the year and different situations where there maybe is an issue. But from every indication that I've seen as a broad issue of Garden City, an issue of economic development or things like that, I don't see evidence in that regard. Not to say it's not an issue for some people at some times, especially during migratory times. So do you want to have any further discussion, or do you want to go with an alternative?
I would like to get more information before proceeding forward on making a decision on this. I think, we received a lot of information, but I'd like to get more information before making a decision.
Okay. So that's separate than alternative 3, which is wait for further communication and or a proposal from Finney County, or are you talking about like bringing this back as an item in a later meeting?
Yeah, item 3 would probably be
Okay.
you want me to just make a motion to that then? Is that what you're looking for? Or?
If that's what you feel compelled to do.
Okay, I'll make the motion that we wait for further communication and for possible proposal from Finney County on this item.
Is there a second to that? Well, I'll second that, the alternative number 3. Any discussion about that?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is like, what is our portion of it? And I mean, in the past, when we've done these interlocal agreements or these agreements, I mean, I just want to make sure that we're safeguarded.
Right.
I mean, I just don't want to see us keep doing these agreements and then, I thought we had a really neat thing going, and then with tying all of the emergency or the first responders together, and then all of that stuff disappeared. And I mean, that was very frustrating to me to see that kind of fall apart. So I mean, this is and I'm like the same thing with you, Mayor. I asked a lot of people, and their whole response is, a lot of it was like, are you going to spend money on this? I mean, here gas is at this amount of money, and here's all this other stuff that we're dealing with. I mean, we're trying to put food on the table, and this is what these are your discussions. And so, I had to do, part of us, defend that there is, there's some issues here, but also, again, this idea of making sure that these discussions are pertinent to things that are, going on and what they perceive as real issues as for our residents. So.
Well, and I guess my whole thought process is I'd like to get more information on it before I do make an actual decision as a commissioner on this.
Right. And the specific information that I would like to see, and it's kind of like what Commissioner Pishy said, is what is the buy-in from the other partners? I mean, if we have, this sounds like it's a very serious economic impact to those feedlots. I mean, the numbers that was being thrown around at the joint meeting, I would think the mitigation efforts could be fronted by a lot of that. And if that's the case, and we're just playing kind of that facilitator kind of role, then, it's a pretty easy thing to say, yeah, we can help out where we can, and that the bulk of that money is coming from some of those private partners that are invested in it. So that's kind of like what I like to see with a proposal, to see how those breakdowns come with the funds. So, any other discussion?
No, I think we're all on the same page.
All right. All right, so what we're voting on, because we have a lot of discussion, is discuss the meeting and wait for further communication and/or proposal from Finney County. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Thank you.
Item 12J, Finance Director Coolman will review the general fund and provide an update on planned uses of the revenue received from the American Rescue Plan Act. Jared?
Good afternoon, everybody. Before we jump into the general fund, I'd like to review the item covering the planned allocations of ARPA, somewhat of a history on last year's ARPA allocations as well as this year. The City of Garden City was awarded a total of $4,030,102.48 through the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA. The city received $2,015,051.24 in 2021 and received an additional $2,015,051.24 in 2022. The city also received additional reimbursement for COVID expenditures, which is also available to be used in the amount of $47,895.54. In 2021, the revenue received was used to replace lost revenue and was designated to fund the following initiatives: $600,000 for childcare, $54,000 for mental wellness services through the Grow Clinic, $250,000 for small business support, $1,030,000 for revenue replacement of the city's general fund, for a total allocation of $1,934,000. In 2022, the revenue received is intended to replace lost revenue and has already been designated to fund the following initiatives: $117,000 for mental wellness services through Grow Clinic, $300,000 for the cemetery improvement and expansion, $200,000 for the fiber extension for the shooting range, $450,000 for revenue replacement for the recreation fund, for a total allocation of $1,067,000. That leaves a remaining amount of ARPA funds available to be allocated of $1,076,998.02. The general fund budget presented this time would require $5,720,194 in 2022 ad valorem taxes. If this amount was adopted, the estimated mill levy of the city would be 41.751. If the commission desired to decrease the estimated mill levy, they could choose to allocate all or a portion of the ARPA funds remaining to the 2022 general fund revenue replacement. An attachment with 4 mill levy scenarios using different amounts of ARPA funds is included. The amounts selected to be used for comparison are $0, $778,000, $916,000, and $1,076,000. Any ARPA funds not allocated to be used for general fund revenue replacement can be used for current and future initiatives that had not yet been identified. So as we go through the department budgets and end with the revenues, the last bit we'll talk through are those 4 scenarios. And I would just, at this time, at the end of the discussion, would be seeking feedback and input from the commission as far as what that target should be as far as a mill levy. We're a little ahead of where we were last year because we already have our valuation in for this meeting, which we were meeting the day we got our valuation last year. So just to give the city a target of goals and identified target points so that we can come back at the next meeting with a presentation of what's going to get us there is what we'd be looking for. So starting off, we have general fund, Department 111, which is City Commission. This is pretty much the same as typical, but there's one issue I want to just kind of highlight and bring up. In looking at the hourly rates and the pay of commissioners, it was brought to our attention that our health insurance, which is available to commissioners to use, the cost for family at our lowest deductible rate is this year $214.60 a pay period, and at an hourly rate of $263, which is the current rate for commissioners, the total pay for 80 hours a pay period would be $210.40, so a difference of approximately $4. If a commissioner were to elect to choose that amount or that plan for health insurance, they would need to pay the difference at the end of the year. Something that could be considered by the commission would be adapting those rates to increase a small amount, which would be able to cover the cost of our health insurance. We do anticipate those health insurance costs for the employee probably continue to rise like they do year over year. So another element that could be built in that isn't currently a part of the commission's pay is a planned annual increase based on a percentage. The rest of our pay plan was developed for our city the last few years. Typically incorporates that 2% approximate increase year over year, but the city commission is not built into that pay plan model. And so developing a certain number to start as a starting point for an increase in salary and then an increase annually to be derived would be something we plan to bring back to the commission to consider. But I would be curious or open to hear thoughts from the commissioners as far as what direction or what opinions you have in the matter.
I do think that would be an option. I mean, as far as like a percentage, I didn't realize that they weren't built in, so.
It would be wise, I think, to include that, I feel.
Yes.
The amount to cover pretty much exactly on a 6 cent per hour increase would cover a commissioner to pay for the family plan and really have no paycheck other than that. So it's not a large amount that we'd be looking at that would cover this problem potentially going forward. So when we come back in the next meeting, we can also propose a number that we think would solve this problem going forward and leave future commissioners not have to worry about kind of nitpicking a little bit on these choices as health insurance costs continue to rise. So ending city commission 2022 revised 140,230, up very slightly over the 2022 original budget, and then 141,760 for 2023. Next is the city manager, Department 112. Here I'll bring your attention to a couple shifts. We have added an assistant city manager position to increase to 2 from the 1 that we had previously, as well as the city clerk is being moved to the city manager's office instead of previously was under service and finance, and we've added the deputy city clerk. We've decreased the intern position. We have the management analyst, which is currently filled, and so there's been a bit of a shuffle amongst staff numbers there in the budget lines. I'd also point out that the increases down below for travel and training have increased from the original 2022 budget numbers to accommodate those new staff positions receiving training and education for the positions that they're currently in. Additionally, under new equipment, there is the new equipment software costs cover the Novus Agenda and other similar programs in the city manager's office. And there's an addition for a new pool vehicle for the city staff. We currently have the Ford Fusion, which is used when any staff need to go on a trip, especially those out of administration. That's the vehicle that is typically used for that, and it's been used consistently. And so we have more staff traveling now. We have more staff going to training, which is a good thing. But adding another vehicle to have another option there, a reliable vehicle. As much as we love the Kia with the zoo print on it, it doesn't necessarily make out-of-town trips anymore. So this has been budgeted to add a vehicle this year. Total for 2022 revised 903,010, and then 2023 978,330. Moving on to service and finance, you'll see that we've broken out some positions. The customer service supervisor was previously included in the customer service cashier line, so that's been broken out. The city clerk has been moved out of this fund. And we also have a budget and grant analyst position, which previously was the budget analyst under the police department. This has been a shift of position to now be under police department and fire and be more of a larger scope grant and project budget analyst. And so previously that position was funded from the police department. It's now under service and finance and has a little bit of a shift of focus there to be a little more encompassing of both the emergency departments. You'll see as well, we have our audit expense out of this line. This is a split cost. The other portions of the audit expense come from the electric and the water utilities. And this $50,000 for 2022 comes from service finance. That's gonna go to $55,000 next year. We also have training and travel increased slightly in this fund for new staff personnel that are going to be pursuing some training for career development and position understanding. For a total of $945,850 for 2022 revised and $1,001,970 for 2023. Department 114 is legal services. This pays for the city attorney contract services as well as other specialized legal services we use throughout the year. This has been a slight increase due to some ongoing legal consultations we've had with city interests. And so this is increasing slightly to be more closer to our history the last few years. And so $301,500 for 2022 and $326,200 for 2023. Next is Fund 115, which is the municipal court. For municipal court, we're adding a part-time translation clerk. This will just be a part-time position, not a full-time staff member, but will assist in translating as well as filling in for other clerk type duties as well. We've broken out the court clerk 2 position, which was previously just lumped into the court clerk 1. This is what's previously was titled the senior court clerk that oversees the other court clerks. Here we have, if you'll notice, the contracted pro tem judge number is increased for 2022. We've had some staffing turnover and some history the last few years where we had to pro tem more on the judge's part than historically. So that number is being increased to match that history. We also have the contract services for the judge line, which is decreased because our contract it's now a full-time or a position with the city again and not that contracted position that it was. Here we also have state fees, court fines. Those are on par with last year. The last year's report incorporated some delayed reporting, and so that 99,000 was probably 5 or 6 months of the prior year's numbers as well. And so we anticipate that 90,000 is a conservative number. It's probably going to be below that for the 2022 number, but that's what we've historically budgeted as well. We also have seen the caseload. This year's caseload is on par to be lower than the 2021 numbers for the municipal court. So we have our legal court appointed at 110,000 this year to cover those cases which have a court appointed attorney, and 110,000 for next year as well. They also have the new equipment. 16,000 for 2022 was some costs for new furniture and things for the new building they moved into that they had to purchase to be able to fill the offices, and so that was an increase from the original budget of $7,000. Total there, $690,580 for 2022 and $677,370 for 2023. Any questions over municipal court? Okay, next is human resources. This department had an increased number of staff for a term, but we're back to 3 positions for 2022 and 2023. There's the human resources director as well as 2 generalist positions that will be covering kind of the realm of HR. We have, if you'll notice, the consultant fee, $52,000 is a consultation for McGrath to review the employee handbook and some HR practices. So that'll be done in 2022 to hopefully help us to identify any sort of policies, procedures that we could adapt or should adapt at this time to stay up to date on current practices and trends in the workplace. There's also $30,000, which is an increase in the training and education line. This is a portion of that echelon front training, which starts off here in the next couple weeks for staff. All other lines are fairly comparable to last year for a total of $425,320 for 2022 revised and $360,640 for 2023. Any questions on human resources? Okay. Next is information technology and communications. Here we have, again, an additional breakout of positions where historically we've had just the communications and media position and all network and IT positions lumped together. We've broken out the digital media specialist apart from the communication projects manager position, as well as the IT manager from the other network and systems administrators. So you'll see those breakouts differing from what 2022 budget consisted of. Here we have a consultant fee for a management study for IT of $10,000 for 2022. We have maintenance contracts as an increase over past years because previously some of the ongoing maintenance contracts and subscriptions were incorporated in the new equipment software line. So to break those out to be more accurately depicting what's going on, whether it's a recurring cost versus a new software, we've added that maintenance contracts line as well as the subscriptions lines to better identify what is what in this budget. So you'll see those numbers are increased over previous years, but the new equipment software will be decreased the same percentage. So we have maintenance contracts, $83,000 in 2022 and $35,000 in 2023, and subscriptions, $91,350 in 2022 and $129,850 in 2023. Coinciding with that, you'll see that the new equipment software line goes from $234,710 to $53,611 for 2022 and $12,465 for 2023. And a breakout of some of that is listed below on the item details. Any questions for IT and communications? Okay. Next is the easiest one of the whole bunch. City prosecution is now contract services, so it's a flat $200,000 a year budgeted for 2022 as well as continuing that contract in 2023. Next is police, and I'll draw your attention, after the department sheets are the supplemental information provided by the police department, which has a breakout of their ongoing costs for equipment, vehicles, as well as most of their larger general ledger items. They have a breakout of what constitutes those. So any specific questions probably will be answered in those forms, but we'd be happy to answer them as well. Here we have a breakout. The police service aide was temporarily incorporated in the temporary seasonal. These are 2 part-time positions that are ongoing part-time but have a limitation to the number of hours they're able to do. So we've broken those out. We have maintenance contracts are a large portion of what the cost is here for that, $305,500 in 2022, as well as $330 in 2023. We do anticipate some of that number may change as they implement their new software solution for the court and police department. Some of the ongoing maintenance costs are due to their CAD RMS system, so those will change. The value there would change with a new contract going forward. We also have the Reimbursed Community Trust Reserve. This is what's building back up the Community Trust Fund. It's actually building the internal loan amount due to the construction of the Municipal Court and Evidence Building. So those will continue on for the next 7 years. We have new items here listed for the indoor shooting range. We have repair for the indoor shooting range budgeted for $63.20 in 2022 and $93.20 in 2023. We hope those aren't needed. It's a brand new building. Hopefully nothing breaks. But we wanted to make sure we added lines for the ongoing cost of that operation, as well as a sales tax payment, since there is some concessions and things being done that would incorporate a sales tax item there. Similarly, down below under commodities and capital outlay, you'll see that we have supplies for the indoor shooting range for those concessions and other things, as well as the new equipment for anything they may need to buy. So those are new to the budget this year. Under utilities, municipal court, I'll draw your attention as well. This is a line that was added last year to capture the utility costs of the municipal court and evidence building. We anticipate those going up, so $99,580 is budgeted for 2022 and $95,260 for 2023. Any questions? Okay. Next is police investigations. Here you'll see that the operations secretary and evidence technician are being moved. Those are now going to be under the support services division. And so the budget numbers there are just shifted down to the next lines. Here we have very similar costs to the previous years as far as budget for salary positions and benefits, other than those shifts in personnel. Here we have uniform expense, salary reimbursement for DEA, fairly consistent with previous years, and then the transfer, our portion for the HIDA grant that we have each year is similar, but increasing slightly due to increased cost year over year. Next we have patrol. We've added a corporal line, which was not broken out previously. It was included in with the patrol officer. Budget numbers on par with 2022 original budget, $5,014,980 is the largest portion of the cost of the PD department is the salaries of the staff. And then $5,113,210 for 2023. You'll see that we have the uniform expenses increased slightly due to increased cost. Gas, oil, diesel increased as well for 2022, and then stepping back some for 2023, as we anticipate those costs likely go back down a little bit. Hopefully. Questions over patrol? All right, next is police support services. You'll see that we've taken out the budget analyst, which is now under the service and finance department, added in the evidence technicians and the operations secretary position. We've also broken out the records supervisor, which was incorporated and included with the records clerks positions before. So a slight shift due to those positions being added this budget. $2,235,285 for salaries and benefits for 2022. Up slightly from 2022 original budget, but again, those numbers correlate with the decreases of the other divisions. Here we have uniform expense as well, and then total amount $2,246,785 for 2022 and $2,352,310 for 2023. Lastly, under PD, we have animal control. We pay for 2 animal control officers out of this fund, out of this department. We also have our contract with the Humane Society. These are the costs that we pay towards our contribution towards the Humane Society each year. It's $237,578 for 2022, and an anticipated increase to $310,000 for 2023. There's also some gas, oil, diesel, as well as some miscellaneous supplies for total $375,748 in 2022, and $457,500 for 2023.
Is there something going on for the increase on the Humane Society from 237 to 310. Is it a building? I'm sorry if I missed it.
Yeah, it is. And I actually visited with the county commissioners yesterday because there's two agreements. There's an agreement between us and the Humane Society, and then there's an interlocal agreement between the city and Finney County. And so this is ending a 3-year cycle. I'm pretty sure a 3-year cycle, right, Chief? Chief Burrell?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's right there.
Ending a 3-year cycle, and they've come back to us and proposed a price increase, pretty sizable, but they, you know, I think we had a good long meeting with them, and I think it's defensible. And they were interested in 1-year agreements. We were interested in preserving multi-year agreements so that we didn't have to do negotiations with them and then turn around and do negotiations with the county every year. So as currently proposed, the price in here would stay the same. I think they've agreed to a 2% escalation, I think. That agreement will be coming on a future agenda. If I'm off a little bit on the percentage, forgive me, but I think, you know, there's a couple little small terms to work out, but we presented that to the county. Previous agreements have had the county pay 30% of this and us pay 70% of this. And we've asked the county to consider continuing that, but they'll put it on their next meeting's agenda, I think, to either approve or not approve. So, yeah. If they don't, then
We go back to tinkering.
we go back to tinkering, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. So the bottom there, you'll see the total police expenses, $11,706,309 for 2022 revised, and $12,186,100 for 2023. Any questions over any element of police? I'm sure Chief Pruitt would love to speak to you and answer any sort of questions you have.
That's a lot.
Okay, moving on. Next is Department 131, which is the Neighborhood Development Services. Here we have some additional staff breakouts. We've added or broken out the Assistant Community Development Director position. That was done partly through 2022. So you'll see also the Community Development Director or the Permit Clerk breaking out as well. So that number jumps for the 2022 revised up those amounts, but it's coming out of the other salary lines that it wasn't broken out of before. Here we also have maintenance contracts. This is a shift as well. Some of these ongoing costs that were captured in the new equipment software under capital really weren't new equipment. It was an ongoing maintenance cost, so we've broken that and added the maintenance contracts line to this department as well to recategorize those.
So Jared, I have a question. So is the engineering fee, is that Wilson and Company, is that correct? So, and then is it based on a number of hours or a number of jobs or a number of, I should have asked before, but I forgot to, but what's it based on? Is it hours or just, so if we say we have a really huge engineering year, is it the same price or is it just based up on their availability?
This is more so the base fee. Each project, there's additional costs with the project ongoing depending on their hours. And so this doesn't capture everything depending on the year, but this is the starting point for what we budget for those.
And where's the additional captured in? Is it?
It'd probably be under the budget, the specific project costs.
Okay.
When we have our ongoing capital projects, the engineering fees are typically tied to that project to track what the total cost for that project was.
Thank you.
So, just a quick thing, not everybody that handles engineering, like I believe Dodge has an engineer. At least I was watching their city commission and they called up a city engineer. So this would be taking in place of, I don't know, maybe 2 engineers, 3 engineers, if we were to do this in-house?
Yeah, so when it was in-house, we had a city engineer, but we also contracted out for some specialty services as well.
Right.
So a big portion of this would be replacement of, what it takes to pay, equip, train, the overhead costs associated with a staff person and or a staff person plus an administrative assistant. And for a while, we had the assistant city engineer position, but it became difficult to keep that filled. at a productive, to generate the production of 2 engineers and have it touch all the different disciplines of engineering. So there's no question that the contracting those services is more expensive, but it also generates more product. And with the project load of what we've experienced in the last 8 or 9 years, we would have been contracting out pretty similar amounts
I know that
regardless.
a lot of cities use interim, well, they use intern engineers, especially for young people coming out of college to get their experience, or, people coming out of college to get their experience. Is that something that we've ever done before? Is it something that we've considered, or?
Yep. And it works for a while.
For a while, right, yeah.
And they move on.
And then they move on, right.
Yeah.
Anything else? Jared?
Yeah, going on, so I'll just point out the new equipment office line, you see a decrease correlating with the breakdown of the maintenance contracts. And then there's an additional, the new equipment vehicle, a $40,000 request for next year to be adding a new vehicle for the department. Any questions over neighborhood development? Next is the street department. Here we have a breakout. The signal and traffic foreman was previously just in with the signal and traffic technician, so that's a breakout. Here we have fairly consistent numbers, other than I'll point out the increase in 2023 request for material street repair. This is due to the ongoing increased costs for what it takes to do our street sealing and crack sealing program. So that's a number that's going to be incorporated for future years. The $550,000, I'll just kind of bring back this. We decided not to do the street sealing project this year. These funds will likely be tied to the projects for Mary Street and 3rd Street, mill and overlay, as that's upcoming. Moving on, we have parks. Here you'll see that we've, when we shifted the recreation department into the parks department, we had different names for very similar positions. So the landscape technician position is no longer being used. We've put everyone under the same maintenance technician 1 position to ease the appearances of these things. So that budget amount went and shifted up. So you'll see just a shift of the dollars there, but a overall decrease due to some sways in the staffing for 2022 revised. We also have the rent office space here for the Parks Department is the Mary Street maintenance shop, which expires in 2024, and the city will consider at that point whether to continue that or not. But that's why there's a rent here for the Parks Department. Closer to the bottom, you'll see that we have the new equipment other line. This is for a 2-ton dump truck for 2022. And then the new equipment vehicle would be a 1/2-ton dump truck this year and next year. As well as you'll see that the new equipment parks line went from $454,000 down to 0. That incorporated those vehicles as well, but a lot of that was for the Grimsley lighting project, which was actually done at the end of 2021. So those funds were already used, so they were reallocated, not included in this budget. But that there's $60,000 for next year for the ongoing equipment for parks projects. Any questions on parks? All right, next we jump into the zoo. Here we have a breakout of 4 staff positions for their conservation awareness coordinator, conservation awareness manager, the zoo education specialist, communication specialist, and education aide were all lumped into one. So we've broken those out to be a little more clear since they are very definitive, different positions. Total increase slightly over the 2022 revised number for the salaries and benefits over 2022 budget. And again, an increase going into next year. Here, the rest of administration, you'll see under new equipment office, they have $7,600 budgeted for 2022 revised, which is an increase. And that's for some computers and laptops for the administrative office. Total number $710,540 for 2022 and $720,920 for 2023. Questions over admin? Okay. For the maintenance division, here we actually had a department, we didn't have to break out any staffing, so that was a plus. We have repair buildings. Next year, we have a garage roof replacement for an increase of $27,000 for 2023. For the repair grounds, there's West Side Irrigation planned for 2022 and 2023 projects that keep those numbers up. And then there's a repair vehicle. They plan on replacing some tires next year, which is why it's increased to $1,400. For the new equipment other, they have a breakout as well as zoo improvement, but you'll see that they plan to have the sawmill and a mower, as well as the Bobcat trade-in program for 2022. And then for 2023, adding a standing drill press, mini compact excavator, and some computers and radios for the new equipment. And then for zoo improvement, they plan on doing street sealing and the fence and trellis replacement in 2022, and fence and barrier improvements, as well as LED lights and an exhaust fan for their existing shop for 2023. Questions over maintenance? All right, for animal division, here we have a request for, or a breakout for our lead animal keepers and our vet tech assistant from the keeper line. They are requesting one additional position be added for 2023 for an animal keeper, up from the 11 authorized for 2022. I'll also draw your attention, we had a repair and equipment line increase to 21,000 for this year. We had a giraffe break the x-ray machine, and so that increased for 2022. We were able to have insurance cover some of that, but there was an increased cost to the city to repair that equipment as well. Apparently giraffes are fairly large and don't cooperate all the time. Here we also have increases in animal feed due to the increased costs they're experiencing across the board for 2022. Revised number. It's a conservative number to make sure that we don't run out of an issue or run out of feed there. And then I hope to drop back down for 2023, but we may need to adjust that as we hit next year's budget as well. For new equipment other, here for 2022, they have some radio replacements and the ozone system for the otters for $51,200. And for 2023, there's 2 computers, a generator for the south end of the operation, dental x-ray equipment, and a half-ton pickup replacement for a total of $156,300. And for zoo building and grounds, there's a plan for $12,000 for the Takin, I think I'm saying that right, yard, and AZA improvements, and then the ongoing renovation of the aviary flight, which is ongoing right now, for a total of $297,000 in this year, and $40,000 for new siding for their operations office for 2023. Bringing the total zoo expenses to $2,991,320 for 2022 and $3,002,225 for 2023. Any questions for the zoo, for staff? I'm sure they're all very disappointed to stay quiet today. Moving on to fire. Here we have the administrative positions. We have the training officer, which was added at the end of 2021. And we've also moved the fire marshal into the administrative department out of the operations department here. So the administrative department out of the operations department here. So those salary shifts are occurring. We have an increase for repair buildings. They're planning to have some plans for a decontamination room. That's included in the $38,000 for 2022, and planning on new showers and some other building improvements for the $25,000 for 2023. They've also consolidated the training, safety, and training ISO accreditation lines just into the training education, as those don't necessarily need to be broken out for the future, and to simplify the process, those are consolidated into the one GL. Total for administration, $569,400 for 2022, and $578,405 for 2023. Any questions over administrative fire?
So the new station will have its own decontamination room, and so they're just adding these to the other two, or just to one of the?
I believe that's true. John, can you speak to that?
So the new one, and so which one are you adding the decontamination room to?
Station 1 and Station 2.
Okay.
And this is the plan, the cost for the plans for that. On to fire operations. I'll point out that we have an increase of 2 positions from 27 to 29 for firefighters for 2022, and an additional 3 positions being added for 2023. This has to do with the increase for that 3rd fire station that are being approved by the sales tax. And there's a correlating revenue request which will be submitted to the Sales Tax Oversight Committee, requesting some of those tax funds be transferred to the general fund to accommodate the ongoing operation costs that are already being experienced by the general fund for those staff in preparation of that 3rd fire station. So we'll have an analytical breakdown each year that we can provide what that cost is, and determine for the ongoing reports how much should be transferred in to accommodate those new staff positions and supply positions being added. We've also broken out the lieutenants and the battalion chiefs, which previously were not broken out, so you have a more detailed view of the breakout there of the fire staffing positions. And again, the fire marshal is now moved up to the administrative role. Total budget, $3,156,030 for 2022 revised, and $383,970 for the salaries and benefits. So that incorporates that increased cost with these added staffing positions. We also have repair vehicle, 100,000 increase, or 100,000, which is increased from the 35,000 previously budgeted. There's been identified a lot of overdue repairs and maintenance which was not being done that can prolong the life and the service of our current equipment. So we're increasing the lines for those repair vehicles to go and make sure we develop, and John and his staff have done a good job of developing a plan, a very scheduled, detailed maintenance plan to make sure we maintain that equipment to the best full function and capacity we can over the next few years. So hopefully that cost savings from the increased repair costs will be not replacing that equipment as often as we would need to otherwise. Here we have new equipment office at the bottom is broken out from the new equipment other line to identify the actual office type new equipment costs. They have breakouts as well. Fire department put together supplemental information that provides these breakouts. But as we look at the new equipment vehicle lines, 2022 incorporates costs of the brush truck, the new ladder truck that was just approved, the Pierce aerial enforcer, and then engine 1 as well. 2023 incorporates all of those as well as an additional F-150 being added. And the breakouts for the other personal protective and new equipment other are all on those supplemental sheets. But if you have any specific questions on those, we'd be happy to answer them as well. Questions over fire operations? Okay. For fire volunteers, this is for those that are volunteering under the department. We added a breakout for the uniform expenses and the new equipment for personal protective gear. These were incorporated under operations previously, but we wanted to identify how much cost went into specifically the volunteer portion of this. So those are added and supplemented from the numbers up in the previous breakout. So total cost $16,830 for 2022 revised, $16,830 as well for 2023. Fire ARF station, Department 154. This covers the costs to run the ARF station up at the airport. There's one firefighter which is budgeted from the ARF station. We typically have one firefighter up there during the service of the flights. That's why there's one budget position to correlate the dots there, as well as some equipment and repairs. Here we cover the repairs for the vehicles out there at the airport for $25,650 for 2022. Getting some repairs done on the trucks. There's been some work on CFR 5 to keep it in compliance and able to be able to be used in the appropriate way. Its testing over the last few years has been close to having issues. It's been too rich, which is the right problem to have when you're out there. But there's some cost of repairs to try to get that back into better service and not be as far out of compliance as it could be. And as well as gas, oil, diesel here for the airport or for the ARF position, as well as some other material for firefighting and foam, the AFFF. We have a pretty good supply out there, so we haven't had to buy any the last few years, but we do use it throughout the year to run our practices and our drills and sometimes need a resupply.
But we are looking at replacing CFR 5, right?
Potentially. We're in discussions. We're not planning on replacing it for this current budget as presented, but it's in discussions with fire staff and airport staff to determine what schedule we should have for that.
Okay.
Total fire expenses, $4,638,806 for 2022 and $4,909,215 for 2023. Any questions over anything in the fire department budget? And I'll draw your attention to the multicolored sheet, the budgeted Station 3 expenses. This is the breakout we're using to quantify how much would be requested of that sales tax project fund to reimburse the general fund going forward. John did a great job putting this together with his staff. That makes it easy to see on a 1 or 2 page document just how much is being expensed to prepare and then ongoing for that third fire station. So props to fire for presenting, putting together stuff that really didn't exist beforehand and is really well laid out material.
Yeah, very, very informative. Thank you.
Next up is cemetery. Here we have a slight breakout with the foreman position no longer being included. The cemetery director, cemetery supervisor position is up there. The foreman is actually consolidated down to parks. We also have a new addition of the license renewal. This is for the plot box program that they've incorporated at the cemetery. So you'll see that $12,000 line, which wasn't incorporated in the previous budgets. Most other costs are fairly similar to last year. We have $50,000 set aside in each year for cemetery improvement, including expansions, the singing tower work, and irrigation improvements at Sunset Memorial, and expansions in N&O. And then the new equipment other incorporates a Bobcat skid steer for 2022 and a 1-ton dump truck for 2023. Total $554,180 for 2022 revised and $633,330 for 2023. Questions on cemetery? Next is recreation. I'll draw your attention to the fact that these only include the 2023 numbers for recreation. As we go forward with levying the tax for the general fund, we won't be levying a tax for the recreation. Their 2022 numbers were presented in the enterprise fund as the rec, but that will finish out that fund, and we'll transfer everything to be under the general fund costs for 2023 and ongoing. So any levied amount needed to cover the cost of recreation will be under the general fund's levy for this budget request for 2023. So most of this we've reviewed as far as the current year. I'll just point out kind of major changes for 2023. You'll see that in the administrative, under the rec operations, we have some computer equipment under new equipment office for $2,000. New equipment other is furniture that they need ongoing. And then there's a transfer to the recreation reserve. We're planning to begin with $50,000 a year, which will build up that rec reserve fund for ongoing one-time projects or unanticipated costs for future needs. So we'll be transferring that out from the general fund to that recreation department reserve, and that 073 fund will maintain going forward. Next, we have aquatics. Looks like numbers this year are going fairly solid. I was talking to Aaron about it earlier. We're excited about the pool. The revenues will be incorporated in the general fund revenues we'll hit at the end here, but the costs are still going to be broken out here. We do have some contract services for Judge Aquatics, timing systems, and maintenance for the slides and the pools ongoing for the $24,000 under the contract services line. For training education, this mostly has to do with the lifeguard certification each year, the $7,400 in 2023. And then chemicals, the costs are increased over last year, so we have $30,000 budgeted, but based on where we see things ending up at the end of 2022 season and then what the trend is continuing, that may be a number we have to adjust for next year. But for now, we're increased over what our 2021 actual is. And I believe Aaron said he's ordered a little bit ahead to try to make sure that we can, if the costs keep going up, we're not having to buy at the peak time. So hopefully we're in a good position for that. Supplies operations include first aid supplies, supplies needed for the concessions, as well as stanchions for the pool. And then the $40,000 aquatic facility line is for ongoing equipment needs, furniture, deck furniture, sunshades, slides, things like that we want to add. And the plan would be to capture some of this unutilized expense line each year and transfer it to the capital improvement reserve to build up a fund for the pool, specifically for any large one-time equipment costs or one-time repairs. Next we have, any questions on the pool? Okay, next is arts. You'll see most of the cost here is under the contract services. This is where we pay the instructors and those providing services under the arts department for a total cost $19,225 for a total budget for 2023. For athletics, I'll point out the recreation supervisor has been moved under the operations department. That's why that's no longer budgeted here in this department. We have contract services. Here's where the officials and the equipment rentals and some of the other costs for ongoing operations of all the sports and athletics is paid from that $92,000 for 2023. Supplies is increased over 2021 actuals to $120,000, and that's due to the increase we're seeing in participation. It's a good thing to have more youth participating in more programs, so those costs have increased, but the associated revenues have increased as well. And then we have our lease agreements for the Leitner lights as well as the Obrate gymnastics here in the capital outlay. Next is fitness. Here we have contract services, includes the instructors as well as personal trainers, $17,300 a year. Our rent is the lease that we pay for core for $138,000 a year. I believe that lease expires in 2024 at this time. We also have the lease agreement for under capital outlay for core equipment. This is the ongoing lease that will keep us up to date on our new equipment for the working out for the fitness arena. So this includes ellipticals that were presented at the end of 2021, and then it'll be an ongoing replacement where new elements or new pieces are added each year. So total recreation expenses for 2023 are $2,893,153. Questions over recreation? All right. Capital improvement, this is somewhat of an all-encompassing fund for the general fund, kind of the other. Here we have our fireworks costs for the fireworks show the city puts on each year. The Main Street program you'll see is Downtown Vision. They have an increased request to $122,000 for 2023, and their budget breakout is incorporated and included here as documentation as well. That's up from the $103,500, which was 2022's number. We also have $100,000 set aside each year for development incentives. Economic development, we have an increased request as well from Finney County Economic Development for $305,000 in 2023. This typically we budget $1 million worth in the budget for economic development, and whatever is remaining above and beyond Finney County Economic Development's request goes to the county to go into paying and helping with economic development incentives. This would be a change to practice for us to budget above and beyond $1 million. Costs are increasing, costs are up, so it does make sense, but that is, I just wanted to bring the commission's attention that historically it's been at $1 million that we levy for, specifically for that economic development amount. We also have an increased amount going to the golf course buildings and grounds transfer from the general fund. This is to keep going the ongoing golf course improvement plan that Clay and his staff have been working on. We have the miscellaneous line here, covers the municipal band, which is requesting back their pre-COVID request line. They had decreased their amount requested for COVID because they had less performances, but their request this year is back up to what it was before. This also covers some consultants the city utilizes, as well as the Southwest Kansas Coalition. The new equipment software line, $2 million in 2022 is the anticipated cost to cover the new software for the financial software of the city, the utility billing, HR, kind of the all-encompassing, which was the RFP presented today. That's a number based off of preliminary estimated pricing from some of the companies we talked to. We feel it's a safe number that should get us through multiple years, 3 years probably of cost with the project. So hopefully that puts the city in position to roll this out and then plan on ongoing costs going forward and what the plan would be for those.
Would the software be a lease software, or would it be a purchase software?
Most software now, you pay to roll it out, and then you're paying an ongoing maintenance. So it's the subscription.
So it's kept up, right?
Previously,
Would it be moved into the subscription line for the following year then?
likely it would go under a subscription or maintenance contract type line. Our current software, we purchase the program outright. We pay a maintenance cost, which is a pretty minimal amount. But then you're with the same program every year. It doesn't change. It doesn't really get developed. Nothing gets added. Most softwares now, it's you pay for the subscription to the service, and it's an ongoing annual cost. So that would be an ongoing cost above and beyond the implementation cost. The $2 million would cover the implementation of the program as well as those first 3 years of contract in our preliminary estimations. And anything not expensed out in this current year would be set aside in a specific fund in the capital improvement for that function to pay those costs for the next few years. We also have the social funding. This is where the community grant and the art grant come out of, and so those are set with a $1,000 increase for next year. So total expenses for the capital outlay, or for the capital improvement fund, would be $3,067,000 for 2022, and then $1,167,500 for 2023. Any additional questions on capital improvement?
So the social funding, there's no rollover then or anything on that?
There is no rollover. There can be.
Okay.
I haven't had a chance to talk to Chab specifically, but if the intent was to reserve some of those funds from the previous discussion we've had, to reserve what wasn't expensed out at the beginning of the year to have somewhat of an emergency dispensement type fund, we could do a rollover to the capital improvement reserve at the end of the year, and any amount that wasn't expensed in that calendar year, they would then have available. That would be the best way to track it. And that's typical practice of the city when we're doing something to that intent, has been to use the capital improvement reserve to reserve those funds. We do something very similar with the, I'm totally blanking, Cultural Relations Board.
Right.
Any amount unexpensed, we typically transfer in so that they can carry on larger objectives or any one-time type cost they choose.
And the $1,000 increase was just
It's
an
cost,
executive decision type thing? Okay.
Any other questions? All right, moving on to revenues. Here I'll point out that the 2022 revised numbers, we made some change to consumer use tax. This We did see a large amount received in February of 2022 in the consumer use tax, so that is a steep increase over prior year's history. Our somewhat earmarked on those funds is to cover the cost of that new financial software. Currently, taking out the outlier month of February, we're up approximately 17% year-to-date on consumer use tax revenues. For city sales tax, we're up approximately 11% year-to-date over last year, and county sales tax 12.5% year-to-date. For gas utility franchise, we're up 20%. For the telecommunications franchise, it's been down slightly from last year. Also down are, as I mentioned earlier, the fines for municipal court were down compared to 2021. Our caseload is diminished from what 2021 numbers were. There was a slowdown with COVID, and I don't know, I couldn't speak to exactly what the caseload decrease is attributed to, but we do see that there's a decreased caseload, and we anticipate those revenues down. So the budget from $825,000 originally there, down to $556,900 we feel is a more approximate number for this year, and then a hopeful increase back up to $700,000 for next year if we do see that caseload come back up to historical numbers. Building permits is down slightly over year-to-date last year, but all permitting is, as a whole, is increased, or is up above average over the last few years. So I'll also point out, you have some fees for indoor shooting range. That's a new GL here for numbers incorporated at the shooting range, that the cost of service for putting out there. There's also revenue for the concessions and type things that'll be out there. We also have added all the revenues for Garden Rapids into this budget, so what was previously under the Recreation Department in 2023 will be incorporated into the revenues here. And then the utility fund reimbursement, we have a slight increase over 2022 budget due to the fact that we've added the franchise fee cost for the administrative service costs for the solid waste department transferring into the general fund as well as the other utility departments. And at the very bottom, I'll point out the transfer from the .30 sales tax. This is the proposed number for 2022 of $315,000 to cover the ongoing costs of the personnel and the gear and equipment needed for those personnel for this year, as well as 2023, a number approximately $500,000 would be requested from that sales tax fund. And that's going to be an ongoing analytical review of what those costs are, and requesting that annually going forward to cover those operations costs.
So the sales tax for the zoo, where does that, I mean, not for the zoo, for the airport, where does that appear? Does that appear in here? Is that what you're talking about here with this .30? For the airport, because I know we did a sales tax for.
Oh, the .15 sales tax?
Yeah, where's that? Is that in this fund somewhere?
So we haven't received any collections on that yet. This month we
Okay.
anticipate we'll see our very first collections.
Okay.
It's going to be captured in the 2021 GEO bond fund, since we'll be expensing the costs for the obligation bond, the principal and interest costs out of that fund. The revenue will be, just like we do with the .30 sales tax. When we get our sales tax numbers, we'll break out
So
the
it'll be
portion,
reported so we can see.
and it'll be separated out in that separate fund. So the numbers here for sales tax are the sales tax apart from any of those specifics. So the .30 is not incorporated in the numbers that we see in the general fund, since before it's reported here, it's taken out and sent to the other fund for the sales tax projects. Similarly will be done for the .15. So total income you'll see for 2022 is $30,253,315, giving us with a cash balance starting at, I missed that number, but starting cash balance of $9,651,336. We have $39,904,651 available for 2022. After our expenses of $32,624,281, we would have a cash balance carryover of $7,280,370 for 2023. With a cash forward of $3,400,000, it's been the city's practice to continue with a cash forward increasing $50,000 a year. Last year was $3,350,000. So with a cash forward of $3,400,000, our total expenses would be $38,249,733, which would necessitate $5,720,194 of ad valorem tax for the general fund. Moving on to the last item presented in the discussion from the beginning of my presentation. The last document before you are the scenarios presented for how to accomplish or what mill levy target the commission would like to provide to staff. The first scenario here is the budget as presented. It incorporates $0 from the ARPA amount, which gives us that mill levy of 41.751, with that $5,852,330 being levied for the general fund itself. I will point out that on here you'll see Parks and Recreation is no longer having an amount levied because that amount is being under the general funds portion. We do have an increase this year for airport due to the staff increases to go to that full security plan. We also have a slight increase in total cost needed for debt service fund over last year's numbers as well. So option A is with not utilizing any sort of ARPA money. Option 2, at $778,000 of the ARPA allocation, would provide a mill levy of 38.567 with a slight increase over 2022's mill levy. If $916,000 of ARPA was utilized, we would have a mill rate of 38.002, or a decrease of approximately 0.5 from 2022's mill rate. And if all of the ARPA funds available were used, we would have a total mill rate of 37.347, or a decrease of 1.2 mills. So city is not necessarily recommending any of the options. What we are requesting is to get a feel from the commission as what your target would be, what you would like staff to come back and present at the next meeting. To kind of touch on the schedule going forward, at our next meeting we'll want to present a target for a mill levy that we would propose to the county. And we need to indicate whether we will be planning to exceed the revenue neutral rate or not. You'll note below the mill levy on each of these, the revenue neutral rate is 34.486 for this year. So our obligation as the commission, or your obligation, is to indicate whether we plan to exceed that revenue neutral rate, and if so, give an idea, target mill levy that we plan or anticipate that we would levy, which would be in excess of that, because that will be published by the county and sent out to all residents, all those who are going to be taxed within our subdivision. So at our next meeting, we would like to get an idea of that mill target and how to accomplish that. The staff can come back with different proposals for the commission, but a target of what the goals or the objective of the commission would be helpful for staff to come with some alternatives there.
I'll just add that those checkpoints at option A, B, C, and D aren't fixed. They more paint a continuum, and there's sort of logic points that I think on Friday there was maybe more logic than there is since we've slept on it. But I think option A would be no ARPA money. Option D would be entirely ARPA money. And absent adjustments to line items, which you all can certainly throw out, but not, let's, using the assumption that the budget as presented in the line items was something that the commission was comfortable with, using ARPA as the only variable, that kind of gave you your top and bottom ends of what we may be looking at from an ad valorem tax standpoint. So certainly anything within that. I think B gave you a slight increase, C gave you a slight decrease, hovering around that 38.512 that you levied for this year.
All right. So I think probably it's good to have a discussion. I will, Commissioner Euler did email Matt and me with her thoughts, and I'll read them, and then we can go from there. So she says, in looking at the proposed options regarding the use of ARPA funds for the 2023 budget, I prefer options B or C. I do not think this is a good year to consider raising the mill levy if we can keep it close to last year. It would be my preference to remain flat or slightly under. I also like options B or C, as it doesn't expend all of the ARPA funds and leaves some to be allocated for future needs. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to express my opinion. So that is what Commissioner Euler had thoughts on these alternatives here. So I don't know if it's good just to kind of go around and get everybody's thoughts that way, or if we want to have a free form, we'll just go around. I can decide which way we do these things. Let's go. Let's just.
I think keeping it flat or decreasing it slightly, but keeping some of the ARPA funds for other uses, I think that's the best use for these funds and for the citizens.
Okay. Commissioner Ortiz?
I was looking at I was liking the option B. I know in our goal, in our retreat, that we would, lower the tax, but everything I like the fact about saving some money from the ARPA funds too to utilize somewhere else. So that, to me, I'm leaning towards option B.
Okay. Commissioner?
Yeah, I'd like to keep it, keep it flat or level, or, keep it level. I know that the people on fixed incomes, there just really isn't, costs are going up for fixed income, residents, and so that's where I think that they see, the biggest, healthcare costs, the cost of medications, the cost of fuel, even, heating and air and those kind of things, so some of the basic necessities. So I would rather see us keep it level or slightly decreased.
Yeah, and I'm feeling the same way with the mill rate. Similarly, keeping it no higher than what we had before. And I don't really care too much how that number gets balanced, if that's from ARPA money or if we adjust what our projected sales tax numbers. They look like they're really strong. So I'm not too concerned about how that number gets balanced. I'm a little bit more concerned about making sure that the mill rate stays where it is, or if we can manage a slight decrease. I was appreciative of an audit with Teresa where she said that a lot of that increase in valuation is new building. It's not necessarily all coming from current, although we do have valuations are going up across the board. So if we can bring that back at least with a current flat mill, that'd be great, especially with the amount of accomplishments that this budget takes into account of the expanding of the airport and starting to get rolling on Fire Station 3 and stuff like that. If we can really keep our mill flat and be able to accomplish that stuff, that's a pretty good testament to the strength of our economy and the skill of our team here.
Yeah, I was surprised though that we could be included and keep it this close, so that
Right.
that was really a great job.
Do you feel like that's enough of a direction forward, or do you want us to officially adopt anything, or?
No, that's,
I think it's good.
Okay.
gives us a target. And there's still a lot of moving
Right.
pieces.
Sure.
It's June 21st.
Right.
and every day there's a
Yeah.
curveball one way or the other. And so, but yeah, it gives us a target that when those things come in, we know how to adjust for them.
Yeah.
Over the past years, decade, we've been kind of up and down, just increments. So it's kind of remained flat for the
Yeah.
for the longest time.
Yeah, she said, Teresa said,
0.4,
yeah, we're down
Mills?
0.4 over the last 10 years on the mill rate. Yeah.
so.
And that fluctuation, the proposal typically is a flat rate. That fluctuation has to do with the final valuation, which comes in from the county, that causes that slight. But the history I've looked back on from the commission has been maintaining that flat rate for the prior year,
Yeah.
going back 10 years.
Good deal. It's good.
And I think you can take some pride in that you had a year where, you didn't add a new service, but you're now budgeting for a dramatically changed level of service. And that's a big deal. To do that, and if we're able to put together something that doesn't dramatically change the mill levy, leaves it flat, slight decrease, slight increase, whatever you ultimately choose as a group, and you took on something that has a 3.5 mil, according to last year's,
Yep.
or the current year's mill levy, would be the equivalent of a 3.5 mil increase.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
something to take pride in.
Definitely. If we can get out of this with keeping a mill flat, that's a lot of positives there.
Huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you very
job.
much.
Anything else?
Good job,
All
Aaron.
right.
Thank you. I think we're ready for commissioner reports. Mayor?
Well, first, before I turn it over, I'm going to say good job, Jared, for getting us through this year. That's a lot of work and a lot of effort to do. So, all right, let us go to Commissioner Ortiz.
All right, well, first, thanks to the fellow commissioners here and Mayor Dick for all that you guys are doing. This packet was a lot. Went from 400 to 500 pages over a day. So, a lot of reading this weekend. So I was pretty busy too with softball and traveling to Dodge and everything else. But a lot of information, and it's coincidence because we talked about water conservation, and before our softball game on Saturday, I noticed that I did have a leak in my sprinkler system, so I had to dig a 2-foot hole and 3 foot deep to get that replaced. So I'm ready for just a nap at some time tonight or tomorrow. So thanks for all of the efforts put in from fellow commissioners, and then city staff for their input and a lot of information that they've kind of put into this as well. So a lot of thanks goes to the staff as well. Also to Teresa for doing her review and audit, and that's a lot on their part too, but I think it goes to show that the city does a really great job with getting their numbers and budgets put together. So thanks to all the head departments to get their staff going and getting numbers and receiving those budget items and putting them in place where it needs to be. So yeah, there's a lot of thanks that goes around for all of that and all the hard work. So appreciate all of the hard effort. And I did go to a funeral this last Thursday, and Mr. Day had passed away, and that in our community is a major loss for us. I mean, he was a hero. He was an informant for Garden City to stop a major tragedy happening here, and our thoughts are with the family, our thoughts with the community and the members who had to go through that. But he was, in my eyes, I believe in a lot of people's eyes, a hero to the community here in Garden City. So I know there's a lot more needs to be said, but I think I'll let other commissioners share their reports. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Unruh.
So I thought the airport groundbreaking ceremony was really incredible. I'm so excited about the terminal. And I mean, and all of us I know are going to be, this is a big travel season, so making sure we're all very patient and very kind and keep that smile so that people coming and going through Garden City, I mean, I think it's really going to be an awesome addition. So I know there's going to be lots of work out there. I also just want to say congratulations to the finance department, really every department for the annual audit. I mean, the report is excellent, and it really, this being your first, I know that was a lot of work, and they sit up and take over for I don't know how many days, at least a week. So congratulations on that. And also the budget putting together, every department really worked hard and understood that, this is a team effort, and the budget really is the proof of that team effort. And so I really appreciated the budget and just how thoughtful and how deliberate each and every department was concerning their asks, and also just really understanding that, we as a community work together to make this really work. I think the water discussion was absolutely enlightening, and also, we talk about water, and sometimes I forget about it, which is kind of nice, and then, I think it just goes away. But I really appreciate you bringing that. And the man who spoke, and I can't remember his name, Burke is all I remember. He said we could call him lots of things, and all I can remember is Burke. But his presentation really highlights that, we are part of a larger system. It's not just Garden City. There's lots of other people, and, understanding that the river really is something that's, needs to be managed and governed, and also appreciated and shared. So, all of the things that are happening with water in here, I'm hoping that we as a city can really step out in a leadership position. I think it's time. There hasn't been a lot of that, and I really appreciate his kind words about Garden City and also our history, but I really do think it's something that we need to make sure and be very intentional about. It didn't show up, I don't know if it showed up on our annual goals. It doesn't, one form or another, but maybe we need to be more deliberate about what that looks like, and I really appreciated his presentation. I just want to echo the sentiments of Commissioner Ortiz. There's lots of heroes that we can, some you hear about and some you don't. And so, Mr. Day, and what he did for Garden City and also for the people of Garden City, and just to care enough, to stand up, it took a lot of courage, it took a lot of heart, and the things that he did for our city, I just really appreciated. I wasn't able to be at his funeral, but I just really appreciated he was being able to be honored. And sometimes the people don't know some of these people who do these incredible acts of courage, and I think it's really an act of kindness for so many people. So I did want to say just publicly thank you to him and to his family. I know this is a big loss, and I know he struggled for a while, but I just wanted to say thank you.
Great. Commissioner Cessna?
Yeah, attended a lot of events this last couple of weeks. The groundbreaking at the airport for the new terminal, did the soft opening at the indoor gun range, the grand opening of the new indoor gun range. We should really be proud of our community and where we're at, and kind of the thinking from the former commissioners and the goals that they've set and where we're at today, and really creating Garden City as a regional center for Western Kansas. And, you know, it's those former thought processes coming from former commissions and working on those goals, and, you know, the 2017 sales tax and getting that passed by the community and having that support of the community. And that really, I mean, the community should really be proud of where we're at and where we're going. And just with the groundbreakings and the openings that we've had recently, people really should be proud of Garden City. Also want to thank the communications department on their promotion of where to place the garage sale signs. I know that I brought it up at the last meeting, but you know, it is kind of a pride thing in your community. You don't want it to look trashy and, you know, have signs posted everywhere and stuff. So it's one of my little things. Good numbers, and we've already talked about that. Good numbers on the emplanements, another record. So out at the airport, really, really great things. And, you know, if you need to travel out of Garden City from the airport. I did attend the League of Kansas Municipalities executive meeting. I'm on the executive board, and a lot of good discussion on kind of where the state's at, but, you know, from the community perspective of the cities, there was some discussion about increasing dues or changing the rates to try to get all of the smaller communities that have a population of 100 or less included in the league. So we might see that in the future of maybe some rate increases for the league. And again, a great audit report showing that, you know, we're financially doing really good and having outstanding staff that keeps us in the black. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
All right. So the first thing I have is to send out condolences from myself, the commission, to Mayor Dwayne West, who lost his wife, Arlita. So just keep him and his family in your prayers, as being one of the former mayors of Garden City. Everybody else covered most of the things I was going to talk about. So, I mean, like Commissioner Sessa said, I mean, we have airport groundbreaking, indoor shooting range, ribbon cutting, Beef Empire Days. Our airport's doing very well, and so for all the reasons Commissioner Sessa know, very proud to be about all the things that we have in Garden City. The other thing I decided to do this when I didn't know it was going to take till 4 o'clock, so sorry to bear with me. But we really were reminded of what heroes look like in Garden City this last week for 2 different reasons. And I'll read this first one just because if you didn't take a look at the press release with the wildfire that we had up on Finney County, talking about coordination, this is worth reading through this, just to talk about what it means to have all our departments working together and working with local agencies, the state agencies. Anyway, it's probably the most exciting read that I've read in a long time. So approximately 14:18 on June 13, 2022, Command 4, Command 3, Command 1, Bush 4, Bush 3, and Tender 2 were dispatched to a possible wheat field on fire at Jenny Barker on Quarter Horse. Upon arrival, Command 4 found a large grass fire in a grass pasture rapidly growing and spreading towards the houses on Quarter Horse. Command 4 advised Finney County Law Enforcement Center to initiate call back to station. Command 4 also advised Tender 1 to respond to the call for structural protection. Command 4 advised Brush 4 that their first priority would be to be protecting the houses. Brush 3 arrived on the scene to assist with the exposure protection. Command 3 became West Side Command, while Command 4 drove to the north and did a 3/6 in the fire. The fire was in a CRP grass field approximately 300 acres in size, with another grass field approximately 300 acres in size to the north. Command 4 observed approximately 1,500 acres of uncut wheat due to the east, a circle of uncut wheat and 2 more houses to the northeast, and more uncut wheat directly north. At this time, Finney County Sheriff's advised that they would be evacuating 5 houses in a possible danger. Command 4 advised LEC to call Holcomb County Fire Department, Garfield Township, and Scott County Fire Department. The request for assistance supplied an additional 11 brush trucks, tenders from the county arrived, and approximately 10 tractors with disc arrived on scene to help contain and control the spread of the fire. Due to the large size, dry fuel, and wind conditions, Command 1 worked with Finney County Emergency Manager to settle a local declaration signed and sent to the state after Governor Laura Kelly issued a state of disaster emergency and signed the declaration. 2 planes from Tri-Rotor were dispatched and used to help control this fire. Kansas Fire Service also dispatched at that time. The 2 aircraft dropped a total of 3 times each and would refill water from the Garden City Regional Airport with assistance from Garden City firefighters and CFR 7. The fire was then contained and there was no forward movement. The fire was deemed under control and Scott County, Garfield Township, and air support from Tri-Rotor were released. 5 personnel remained on the scene with Kansas Forest Service and mopped up the area. Command 4 and the Kansas Forest Service called this fire under control at 1640 and the fire deemed out at 1842 and all returned to unit service. In total, 5 homes were evacuated, approximately 700 acres were burned, and 40 personnel were on scene fighting the fire. The response included 4 tenders, 1 engine, 11 brush trucks, 11 tractors with disc, 2 aircraft, 5 incident commands, 16 personnel responded to the callback to station and were dispatched for 4 separate incidents. At this time, the cause of the fire has been deemed unintentional and the cause was a bearing failure and a wheat header, and estimated damage is unknown. So, I mean, holy cow. That is an amazing read, an amazing testament of coordination. But it really talks about heroes. And there's different kinds of heroes. And the first kind of hero are firefighters and all the people that responded because that's their duty. It's their job to be a hero, to put their life on the line because that's what they've trained to do. And they did an amazing job. That's one kind of hero, those duty-bound heroes that we have. And we have a lot of them in our town, including the police officers. The second kind of hero that we have here that we're reminded of last week is somebody like Tri-Rotor, where they're not called to be this. They don't have to respond, but they go and put their resources into protecting their friends and family. And those are also heroes. Sorry. This is the un-mayor-like thing, I mean. But the other thing we have to think about when we talk about heroes, our heroes, thank you, that aren't duty-bound. They have no reason to put their life on the line. They also aren't protecting their community. They aren't protecting people that they know. And that's the heroes that we remember, like Dan Day. What he did is he sacrificed everything to protect people that he didn't know. He didn't have to do that. He didn't have a duty. Nobody made him do that. But him choosing to protect those people in a time where he knew that would most likely be the end of a lot of friendships, be the end of a lot of the things that he had up to that point, is really a third kind of hero. And not to say one kind of hero is better than the other, but those are the ones that we all can be. We don't have to say that this is my job. All you have to be is a person who's going to stand up for it. But it's not easy. You can lose your life for being a hero in today's day. And like they said, if you're at the funeral, he didn't even necessarily agree with the people he were protecting. He did it because that was the right thing to do as a human. So we were so reminded of the heroes in our community. We have so many great people in our community, so many heroes. But one of the top cream of the cream, the people that you only get once every 50 years, once every 100 years, was Dan Day. And he is truly, or was truly, a Garden City hero and a true patriot in every aspect of the word. So thank you for that, and all in the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.